cracking podcast, 5 stars. Great podcast, lads. Watch it every week, and it's truly my favourite football podcast. Keep up the good work. And yes, I agree. This season has been. He's done the word shit there, boys, but I don't want to say it loudly because it's rude.
We've already got the explicit rating.
Good. Sorted. Hello then, folks. Welcome back to For the Fans. It's me, Ben, and I'm joined by 3 of my other co-hosts. Jack, hello there.
Hello, yeah, it's been a while since we've all kind of sat down around the table with each other. But it's the end of the season. It's over. Almost.
It's nice to have you and Proudy back. Proudy, hello.
Hi, I'm glad to be back as well.
Yeah, you've both been away.
I thought you were going to say, hi, I'm Proudy.
He is Proudy. He's confirming himself. And Kino, we were last week, mate, so we're regulars on this bloody show. Right, so it's good to have you back. Everything okay?
Business as usual. Yeah.
We are strong and stable. So then, let's kick things off. The feature returns. Everyone, can I get a round of applause for the feature? Just nice to have it back for the end of the season. We'll be doing an extra feature show some point next week, so keep an eye out for that. But Proudy, hopefully you've got the feature ready and go in. I don't know what the word I was going to use there. Go for it. Go, Proudy.
Yeah, I think looking over the last 2 features I've done, they have got longer and longer. So I think this week I've decided to make it shorter because there's a lot of stuff we have to go through today anyway.
Fair.
The one that me and Ben did before was almost a marathon.
Yeah. But then Jack did an even longer one after that.
Really?
Oh. Yeah, I think it was about 25
minutes.
Listener
Callum Keane.
Big fun of the show, Kino, there, everyone.
But this week, the Guess Who game, I've decided to base it around managers this time. So I've given you all 6 different managers, and there's 3 teams underneath them, and at every time I'll give you 1 team. So if I give you the first team, you get it right, then you get 3 points, and if I get down to the third team and then you get it right, you get 1 point. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So every manager has got 3 teams attached, and we have to guess who it is based on the clubs they've managed.
Exactly. And if one of you gets it wrong,
is what he should have said, listeners.
Yeah. If one of you gets it wrong, there is a chance to steal, but you would only get a point. So,
is it 2 points normally?
Yeah. So it's a max of 3.
It could be 3 points if you get it straight away.
Well, it's a max of 3 if you get it straight away. Yes.
Do you only get one guess, or?
Yeah. I'm trying to think. No, I'll give you 2. I'll give you 2. No, I'll give you 2 because I think there's some managers I got here where they've all managed like similar teams. So I think there might be, a bit of crossover.
Got you.
But I think, who am I going to give it to this week? I don't know who to start.
I'll volunteer as tribute. That's got
Okay, Jack. Okay.
I'm ready. I'm just cracking my fingers,
Oh no! You mean business, Kino.
Okay, the first manager I've given you, the first team, which is a clue, is Preston North End.
So I was hoping you were just going to give me the manager.
Yeah, you can guess whenever you want. Like
Buzz. Can I steal?
No, Jack's got it. Jack's got to get it.
Nice.
And then if he gets it wrong, do you want the next team? Oh, David Moyes is correct. That's 3 points.
Well done, Jack.
Thank you.
Can I ask, Proudy, are these managers from the Premier League?
No.
Necessarily, or not?
No, they get harder. Like I've given you some fairly easy ones to start off with, and then at the end they get a bit more difficult.
Sunday League football. Yeah. It's like, hold on.
Kino.
Hello.
Your first manager. The first team is Juventus.
Okay.
Do you want the second team?
It down.
Would you like the second team or?
Yes.
Okay.
Hence the reason I didn't answer.
The second team is Monaco.
Right.
Buzz.
Would you like the third? You can ask for the third as well.
I have it. Yeah, okay. I have a good idea who it is, but I just want the third to.
I mean, you've got 2 guesses, so you might as well have a guess now.
You might as well have a go, mate.
Is it Claudio Ranieri?
That is correct. That is 2 points.
Yeah. Good. That's done well.
Good start. So Ben,
I think we should only get 1 guess, Proudy. I'm changing your own rules here. 2 guesses, too easy.
Yeah, we get 3 clubs.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I gave you 2 guesses for the later options, but it's up to you.
Yeah,
so, Ben, your manager, the first team I've got down is Inter Milan.
All right.
Okay.
Is this in like chronological?
No, I've mixed them up. So because otherwise it would just be too easy, I think.
Yeah.
The second team is Galatasaray.
Is it? Is it?
I have a name in my mind and I can't think quite who.
I mean, third team's obviously going to be the big clue, but I might as well go for the 2 points and say, is it Roberto Mancini?
That is correct. 2
Yeah.
points. So yeah, it was Man City was the third
I'm
team.
not. If
so.
these are the easier
Okay.
ones, I'm going to be screwed by like the third round. I'm not looking
Yeah,
forward to this.
you could be.
feature.
You could be. Jack, the first team for your second manager, Academica.
Okay, so Portugal.
Good, Jack.
Next one. I
I think I know this.
I'm going to clap like an American TV show.
This
when you
might
do.
give it away. The second
Yeah.
one is Chelsea.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm all over this.
Silence.
I think. Do we get 2 guesses still, or is it
No,
the one guess?
no.
rule?
No.
I'll go for the 1 pointer because I got 3 points
Okay.
before.
The third team is Zenit St. Petersburg.
That would be the one, the only Andres Villas-Boas.
That's correct. 1 point.
Would you have got that on the second go, Jack, or did you need?
No, I was thinking him, but I was really doubting myself. Like
Could have been Mourinho. So
that was.
Didn't manage before Benfica though, Proudy. So unlikely.
I was just throwing you off. But
You don't get an
Keno,
extra point for that, Ben.
the first team for your second manager is Watford.
Could be anyone.
Okay.
I think
Yeah, I was
I'm
going to
in
say
the running for that one.
there's
I
an
think.
entire.
The second one,
I think I'll need the second club.
yeah. The second one is Reading.
Ooh.
Oh, Buzz.
Hit me again, Praddy. Third one.
Celtic.
Do you know this, Ben?
Yeah.
I don't. That doesn't matter.
That's interesting. No, I don't know either. I'm gonna have to.
It is Brendan Rodgers.
That is correct.
I
Brendan
see.
Rodgers.
The Watford threw me. I had
Rog.
Reading. I knew he was at Reading, but I had no idea he was at Watford. That's new to me.
I think he had one season there, and then
If we say Buzz, does that mean we get the first go if we get the chance to steal? Because that's only
yes,
reason I'm saying Buzz.
yeah, new rule.
Right.
I mean, I should have probably thought that.
This is
before,
getting a bit
I
too
started this.
complicated for my liking. I like a simple feature.
Right, next.
Okay, Ben. First
Yes.
team for you, Finland.
I mean, that's a nation rather than a team, but I guess it is a team.
I'll have a second one.
Inter Milan.
A lot of Inter Milan.
This is going to be the sort of manager that sort of went to Finland late on, isn't it? Anyway, go on.
And the third one is Blackburn Rovers.
Wow.
Very clever, Proudy. I will say, the curveball you've thrown in there is magnificent. It is Roy the Boy.
It is Roy Hodgson.
Roy Hodgson.
That's a good one.
So
Yeah,
yeah, I think
Finland
I
does
can't
that.
remember.
Oh,
I
God.
can't remember if he managed Finland after Blackburn or before, but it was. I thought
Yeah.
that might throw someone. So.
Oh, that was... Nobody will remember him managing any of those teams. I think that's difficult.
I've kind of erased his career from my mind after both like his stints at England and Liverpool.
Yeah. It was best to do that, to be fair.
Okay, Jack. This might get a bit.
This
more
is the round
difficult.
where I thought I was going to go wrong, so please indulge me.
The first team is South Africa.
Okay, yeah, I'll have the next one, please.
The second one is Portugal,
Yeah, we'll have the next one as well, please.
and the third team is
Good
Real Madrid.
South Africa, Real Madrid.
I've not even
What-
buzzed at this point, Keno.
What was the other one?
Yeah,
And
normally,
Portugal.
Ben.
I
Any
mean,
ideas, Ben?
I don't have a clue.
I've got an
South
idea,
Africa.
but I don't know.
I'm just going to wave a white flag.
Can
Neither
Buzz.
of you's buzzed. Ben's
Oh,
buzzed.
Ben's buzzed.
go on, Ben.
God, I kind of wish I didn't buzz.
Did he lose a
Um,
point for a false buzz here?
No, is it Carlos Queiroz?
That is correct.
Yes!
Carlos Queiroz. Yeah, he did.
Points.
He managed
So-
South Africa first, got them to the 2-2 World Cup, then Portugal, and got them. No, then Real Madrid, and then Portugal in the
It was
2010
him or
World
Big
Cup.
Phil Scolari, but I can't remember Scolari ever managing Madrid. But I was
No,
getting,
that's
no.
yeah.
I was
he
getting
yeah, I
well
don't think he
confused.
was.
So that's a good
I had
answer.
him in my mind, but I wasn't certain.
Okay,
Ben's on form on this feature.
I am.
okay.
It's because
Here we go.
I'm very old, listeners.
Yeah, he does have years on his side with
Yeah.
this one.
Okay, Keno. The first team for your third manager is Saudi Arabia.
Yeah, I was going to say before you began that, I think I'll need the second team.
Yeah.
So you could ask both.
The
of them.
second team is Galatasaray.
Isn't it always?
Yeah, they've had a lot of interesting people.
Was.
Saudi Arabia, Galatasaray. I have an idea, but I want one more.
Barcelona.
No. Oh.
Shouldn't have buzzed. I shouldn't have buzzed.
Is it Louis van Gaal?
That is incorrect.
Well,
It's
not a bad
up
guess,
there.
eh?
Yeah, it's up there.
Yeah.
It's up for grabs.
I'm trying to think.
I've
It
accidentally
could be-
buzzed. Do I have to still say?
You can take
think
away your
so.
buzz.
You can't take away his buzz.
Look, it's my game. It's my rules. So,
It's his ball. He'll take it home if he wants to.
Oh,
All right. So on my buzzed answer,
I might know who this is.
I'll go with. I've forgotten his name, but I know who it is. It's the Dutch guy with a funny hair.
Yes.
Rijkaard.
Louis van Gaal.
Frank
Right.
Rijkaard is correct.
Yes.
So
points. I'm so old.
I know. I think Barcelona's first, then Galatasaray, and then Saudi Arabia. So
Yeah. Thinking of Barcelona managers like pre Guardiola is a challenge. You've got to try and figure out who was there.
Well, I obviously I didn't pay attention to Rijkaard's career after he left Barcelona. So.
What's he done since Barcelona? Is that where he's managed like Saudi Arabia?
yeah, Saudi
He went
Arabia.
there
I
a few
think.
years ago.
I think that he got fired, and that was it.
I seem to remember him getting spat on at Galatasaray or something like that. I don't think bad. I mean, allegedly, because I can't remember. But there was an incident, I think, to do with Rijkaard and spit.
I mean, these first 3 rounds. How many rounds are there? 6.
6, yeah.
This is one of Proudy's short features, listeners. 12 minutes in. Go
I
on.
know.
We cut it down to 5. We've got quite a lot
Paddy,
to
It's
get
up to-
into.
I mean,
there.
it's up to you, but I
should
mean, this-
time test them
Yeah.
before you.
I
before you
know.
begin.
I could do, but okay. So Ben, the first team I've got
But you
on
can't
here
be asked.
is Tottenham Hotspur.
Thank you.
Yep. The second team is Malaga.
Juan Ramos.
Correct. 2 points.
Yeah.
The third team would have been Real Madrid, so that would have
Yeah,
made it.
that would have been a gimme.
Yeah. So okay, Jack. I think you could get this one. The first team is Bournemouth.
Okay.
The second team is Gillingham,
Okay.
and the third team is Stoke City.
Oh God.
Regret my buzz.
I wish I had like a clue.
I mean, I've given you 3.
I'm trying to think of people. I'm trying to think of people who have managed.
He's good. This guy. He's
Oh!
good. Good.
Is it Tony Pulis?
That is correct.
You cheeky bugger.
1 point.
Gillingham.
I
Yeah.
only knew that because of the Bournemouth. I was thinking of old Bournemouth.
I thought you were going down the
Stoke
Redknapp
man.
route, and then I regretted it.
No.
I see. It seems easier the first one, and then when I give the next 2, you're like,
Well, yeah, that's part of the. I think that's part of
yeah.
the feature, Proudy, if I dare
Yeah.
say so. Hmm.
I just like throwing curveballs in there.
Right, over to Keno.
Kino.
I don't like the curveballs.
Oh, here we go.
The first team is Oldham Athletic.
Okay.
Oh my
The
word!
second team is Bury.
Am I getting some tough ones? Or is it just me? Right.
You say you're not
Like-
keeping up with the history of Bury
And-
Football Club?
The third team is Crystal Palace.
Oldham Athletic, Bury, Crystal Palace.
2 teams from the Manchester area.
Yeah.
Be a clue there.
Is that a clue?
I don't know. I mean, it might be.
It's not Sam Allardyce, is it?
Unfortunately, not. No,
No.
it would have been a good guess because he did manage like teams around that level.
Yeah,
but
that's
it's
what.
not.
That was like bowling.
Anyone else got an answer? Or
I kind of just want to throw out a guess. What was the last club you mentioned?
Crystal Palace.
Right, I'll have a guess. I could just if Jack has a guess.
I'm trying to think of who's managed Palace recently.
All right, I'm just going to say Ian Dowie.
That's incorrect.
Yeah, I
It's
don't.
another good guess, actually.
I don't know.
I mean, who's managed Palace who's not been said? Just give me a name.
We'll help you out here, Jack. We can't
Go
have
on.
Pulis. He's got. It's not Pardew, sadly.
I'll go with Redknapp. He's never managed Palace, but we'll just put his name.
No, unfortunately, it was Neil Warnock.
You know
So-
he's never managed Palace.
Warnock.
Neil Warnock, yeah. If I said Sheffield United, probably actually someone would have got it. I think.
Yeah.
Yeah, Warnock. That was good. That one, Friday.
I tend not to think about Neil Warnock if I can help it.
Colin Wanker.
I kind of miss him from the Premier League.
Do you?
A little bit.
You're the only one, Friday.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's a bit like the
Ian.
Wolf on Gladiators. That's
Your first team. Well, I'm sorry. Jack,
He's
no,
never
you
been
know,
compared
just-
to the Wolf.
He will be flattered by that comparison. He'll take it.
Flattered to be calling himself the Wolf from now on.
There, like for everyone from England. I apologise to foreign listeners, but if you want to watch Gladiators, it's worth it.
It could be the feature next week. Just compare Premier League managers to 90s
Former
TV stars. Yeah. Ben, the first team on your fourth major is Leeds United.
Okay, I've got loads of people in mind.
Yep. Second one is Australia.
Oh, all right, yeah.
And the third one is Barcelona.
Leeds United, Australia, and Barcelona.
Oh,
Buzz.
Okay.
sorry, I'm
Buzz,
very.
Buzz,
So,
You've caught me.
Buzz.
Eh?
Buzz.
Akino's buzzing. This is
Oh.
worse.
Oh,
Jack, I got it.
I think
You
I know
can't
who
buzz.
it is too. I'll buzz too for a secondary buzz.
That's if I get it wrong, though. If assuming that Ben doesn't get it.
Oh,
No,
He's probably
no,
got
it's
it.
not Ben. Whatever you're thinking, it's not.
is it England's 1996 hero Terry Venables?
that is
Shit.
correct.
Yes, I've pulled it out of nowhere. Absolutely nowhere. I thought
don't
if
know
Jack
where you've
knows
got
it, I'm on it.
Jack, did you have it?
Heck.
I did have that, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I want to screenshot my computer to make sure no one thinks I've misdemeanored there. That was memory.
Okay,
Oh,
on to Jack again. The first team on your fifth major is Millwall.
Fan favourite.
Do you want the second one?
Yes, please. I mean,
No problem.
Okay.
Leicester City
yeah, we'll have the next one too, I feel.
good luck, Joe.
and Blackpool.
I have one name, Buzz, and
Uh,
I have no idea if it's right either. Oh, okay.
sorry, so Blackpool was the last one. Sorry.
Blackpool was the last one.
Is it Ian Holloway?
That is correct.
Yeah, I was going to say
He's
Holloway.
pulled that
I was
out
going
of
to
the
say
bag.
Kenny Jackett, and then you said Blackpool, and I was like, hang on.
Oh, Kenny
Yeah.
Jackett's a good one.
That was a good answer. Keno.
Do we know
the
for certain
first-
there's not any like where there's two possible answers? You know, the same magic.
Yeah,
answer?
well, whatever's on the Excel spreadsheet is the answer. So
Listen,
love that. Yeah.
listeners,
What a
email
system.
in. Listeners, email in if he's got any wrong here.
What a system.
look, if I get it wrong, then they can like suggest their own features.
They will do.
They can write their own features in for you to read off. Is that what you're
Pardon me,
suggesting?
Brady, if you hadn't have arrived on the scene, we would have been doing that by now. Anyway.
Yeah, tried that for 2 years, probably didn't work, mate. So
Keno, the first
yeah.
team for you is Millwall.
again,
Another Millwall.
Yep.
Buzz.
Okay.
The
Yeah.
second team is Sunderland.
Okay. Again, I don't.
And the third team is the Republic of Ireland.
Millwall, Sunderland. Come on. I mean, I have
I
an
don't,
obvious name.
Yeah, I don't remember them managing one of them, but it's
yeah.
possible.
We're thinking about the same guy, Ben.
Yeah, we are.
And
I'm going to be honest.
Well,
I've switched off here for this one because
the thing is, if I say this particular person, Ben, it's going to eliminate that possibility.
I think
for
it
you.
has to be this person, though.
Yeah. Okay. I'm going
Can
to
I
take the
ask
hit
for
and
the
say
clubs for the
Martin O'Neill.
That's not who I was going to say.
That's not him.
Okay.
Can
No,
I
I
have
was
the
gonna
club
say-
list?
I was Buzz, Mick McCarthy.
That is correct. Mick McCarthy was the
Oh.
answer. Yeah. I think the Sunderland Republic of Ireland could have been Martin O'Neill. I did look that up to check he had managed Millwall as well.
Yeah.
Martin O'Neill manager. Oh, he's doing it now, isn't he?
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
I've checked. I've fact checked this, so
That's
you know.
an error.
Yeah. Okay, Ben. The first team for you is Coventry City.
Gunstracken.
Has anyone else got any answers? Then
He's feeling confident.
He's
No, you
already
can tell
quite
us.
wrong.
You can tell us. The
Was it
rest of the
wrong?
manag-
It is wrong. Yeah.
Tell us the rest of the clubs now.
Okay. The other two are Charlton Athletic and Crystal Palace.
Can only be one person. Buzz?
Buzz?
Can't answer again.
Buzz?
Yeah, Keno.
Is it Alan Kirbishley?
No.
No.
See, that's the name that was kind of in my head.
It's down to Jack. I mean, it's Jack or broke here.
Oh gosh, I'm trying to think of people who like
It's a
have
situation you
managed
never want to be.
Coventry. And I genuinely can't figure that many. Like Russell Slade, maybe.
I mean, where is that come
Wow.
from? That is out of left field.
And he's managed Charlton and he's managed
Wasn't
Cov.
wasn't he a singer in the 80s? Russell Slade.
I can't remember who he was managing last, actually. Who was he managing last? Was it Charlton? Yeah, he gets sacked from everyone at the moment. It was actually Ian Dowie. So.
I've said him.
Yeah.
Can I have half a point for that?
No, unfortunately.
What was the third team? I'm now really curious.
Crystal Palace.
Palace.
It's not done Palace.
Straight in the
Dowie?
striking. That was a mistake.
Oh, yeah.
Deary me.
Okay.
Sad now.
The last round.
I thought Russell Slade was a great shout because I was like Coventry and Charlton definitely.
You haven't made it that
Palace
hard.
wasn't,
No. I do make these features difficult, but I don't make them that difficult. I'm not
Not
going to
Russell
start
Slade
picking lower
difficult.
league managers.
Let's have it, Proudy.
Okay.
We've got a lot
Jack,
to get through.
put me out of my
For Jack,
misery,
the
Friday.
first team, Sheffield Wednesday,
We'll have the next one.
Derby County,
We'll have the next one.
and Bradford City.
I mean, Steve McLaren. Why not? Just throw out a name.
Anyone want to buzz?
Can we have the teams again?
Yeah, Sheffield Wednesday, Derby County, and Bradford City.
I'll let Keane have a guess if he's got one.
That's a very polite way of saying.
Yes, I'm
I
going-
don't know.
I'm going major left field here.
Sheffield
So
Wednesday.
I've got no idea.
You've got nothing to lose with having your guess first.
Well, if Keno guesses it, then I've got an extra guess, haven't I?
It's not,
so I have got something to lose, Jack.
It's not like Nigel Clough or someone like that. Is it?
Unfortunately, not.
I
No.
was going to say Benito Carboni.
He played
has he
for
ever
them.
managed
No,
anyone?
he's played for
He
them.
played for the Villa, yeah. I love
Yeah.
Benito.
I just
No.
wondered if he'd managed them as a caretaker at any
No.
point.
Unfortunately, it was a friend of the show, Paul Jewell. So
Oh,
he's managed the
oh,
Oh, well, now I feel
Good
bad
meme.
for forgetting
Good,
him.
well memed,
You
Friday.
could have
Well
said the
memed.
bonnet of a Ford Fiesta, would have got it.
I will say,
Well,
I will say
memed.
earlier on where Reading was mentioned, I was thinking maybe it's Paul Jewell. Maybe he's going to make an appearance.
Yeah. I have
many we got
thrown.
left?
There's two more. Sorry, there's one more each for you and Keno.
Brilliant.
So, so Keno, the first team I've got on here is Bolton Wanderers.
Okay.
The second
I like the
team
sound of that.
is Houston Dynamo.
I don't like this. Oh, Gary Megson. That's weird how I know that. I've got one.
Was it the
I
right
mean-
name, Callum?
What if it isn't Gary
Yeah,
Megson?
it's not Gary Megson. So so he doesn't know that then.
What I liked was I didn't.
Oh no, it's Owen Coyle. No, I know this. Give it me. Give it me.
Split the
Buzz.
point. We'll have it, Jack.
Yeah, he spoiled it. No one gets the points of that. Gary Megson,
Proudly,
great.
I've
It was a
only
highlight
got
of the
one all
season.
feature.
That's my highlight of the show this year.
I've only got one all
He
one
was
feature.
enthusiastic. Gary Megson.
What are the
I knew it was
scores on the
Bolton
door?
managers.
Right.
Finally, the last one for Ben.
I might gamble again here, boys.
Can we know
So-
what the scores on the doors are at this point? Because Ben might have to gamble with an early guess.
Ben's won the feature. He's got 10. Jack's on 6.
Yes.
And Keno's on a very, very low 2. But we won't.
Shouldn't have turned up, Keno. Shouldn't have turned
I
up.
got
Give me
3
the-
points
give me the
for
other
the
one.
noise
No.
on there, so it's
Right,
like-
go on.
I'll give you a sympathy point at the end.
Let's
First
hear it.
team for you, Ben, is Italy. The second team is Bayern Munich. And would you like the third team?
Yes.
Republic of Ireland.
Is
Oh,
it?
I know it.
Is it Marcello Lippi?
Keno.
Buzz.
Oh,
Buzz.
no.
Wrong Italian old manager is Trapattoni.
It
Oh.
is correct. He got
Yes.
that one, but he didn't get.
Yes.
You could have been right
Yeah.
there, more right there. He said wrong old Italian manager. You're absolutely right. I knew he was Italian. I just didn't know which one it was.
But that brings to the end of the feature. So the final scores.
And don't worry, that wasn't-
So I've
that
got
was
the
the
points.
worst mistake
I've won the
made.
points.
Well, the final scores are Ben 10, Jack 6, and Keno 3. Now, Ben actually gave me all of your predictions from the start of the year and asked me to take off or add points, considering how close you got. Yeah, so you could still win the feature here. Like, you know.
I make
Yes.
a comeback in
Yeah,
this
you
one.
I
do.
was leading the feature.
Okay, so the first criteria we had on here was the top goal scorer. Now, all of you said Aguero. I've already got the stats. Aguero actually got 20, but Sanchez got 24, Lukaku got 25, and Harry Kane finished top with 29.
It wasn't bad, was it? We did all right.
We just discussed
Actually, I'm not going to give any points to that. I'm not going to take away any points. I'm not going to give any points.
We just discussed the fact that Harry Kane scored more goals than Middlesbrough.
Did he? Is that true?
Yes, Middlesbrough scored 27. Harry Kane got 29.
Oh, I very much like that. Deary me.
Ridiculous. So the second one is top assists. Now Ben said Ozil.
Can you boys remember who you said for this?
I'm trying to think. I think I might have said like Ericsson.
That's very complimentary to your
Jack, you said
self.
Hazard. So Kino said Ibra. So I'm just seeing if any of them.
You said Ibra, Kino.
Yeah,
most assists.
We shouldn't dwell on that. You said Ibra.
I do like how you and Jack. Oh,
there's a reason why. Sorry, there's a reason why Kino said Ibra. I don't know if you've got it, Proudy, to why Kino said Ibra, but it's linked. It's okay. So Kino said Ibra. It's to do with his top goal scorer, by the way, because of what he said during that.
Yeah.
Can you read that out? And maybe
you said in brackets, Rooney will be back in the goals. So.
when
Can we take points off for that?
You said,
guess?
Callum Keane said, I think it'll be great, but dark horse. I think in the brackets, Proudy, where our dark horses, if you want to mention those as well. Top goal scorer. And we were like, well, I think Ibra likes an assist. And with Rooney back in the goals.
I know. Well, Jack said Shane Long.
I'm
so.
more shocked by the fact that
Shane Long was a dark horse.
Okay, yeah, that's worse. Fine. At least Ibrahimovic probably has an assist.
But actually, I'm going to give Ben a point because he said Ozil 9, and Ozil actually did get 9 assists this season for Arsenal.
Clarify, that wasn't the guess. That's just how many they got.
Oh, is it? Oh, well.
Yeah,
I mean, that would be
well,
impressive.
you said
Ozil.
I'll give you the point. Well,
Hazard and Ibra both got 5 each, by the way.
Okay, because I was about to say, because I was literally about to mention that Hazard and Ibra down here had 5, and I was thinking, 5 assists all year? They can't really beat most assists, can it?
They both got an EA Sports Team of the Season, though, didn't they?
Well done to them.
So player of the year, Ben said Aguero, Jack said Hazard, and Kino said Lukaku. Now, I think 2 of those players were on... Actually, was Aguero named on the short list?
No.
Was he?
Sergio Aguero, do you know, this is a stat about Sergio Aguero, never been in Team of the Year.
Well done.
Really?
Never been in Team of the Year. Can you believe that?
And to be fair, we backed Aguero for the goal scorer, and I think he had his best return this season, or his joint best return.
Yeah, like goals per game.
For City in all competitions. I think he's got 32 or something. So
he
didn't have a bad season.
He's had a good year.
That is a good start.
So moving on, we've got manager of the year, and Jack and Kino.
Do you know
who you said, boys, for manager of the year?
Jack and Kino said the same.
I don't remember any of these, honestly.
Yeah.
This is going to be bad, isn't it? It's going to be like Mourinho.
Someone's getting deducted points in here, but Jack and Kino said Coman, and Ben said I talk
Don't read it out loud.
So,
now that's an issue.
so that's -1.
-1? That's generous.
He did get sacked, so I made that -2. I forgot about it. He get sacked, did he? So
He did get sacked, I'll make it -2.
Okay,
It's hard to argue it, boys, I'll be honest. It's hard to argue it.
So flop of the season, I think Kino. Kino and Jack both said Leicester, which I think is fair. I think they finished 12th, didn't they?
Yeah.
And they did have to sack their manager to
so
slightly. I think that's a decent.
I'll give you.
If Leicester in 12th.
I will give you each a point for that.
Thank you.
And Ben said Southampton. Now I'm not going to take away points for that because they finished 8th. So I don't think they flopped that badly. They're normally where they were in the table. So moving on. Champions. Kino said Chelsea, so he gets a point for that.
I get 1 single point for naming the champions.
I mean, it was pretty obvious. They won the league by 9.
It wasn't obvious because neither of us said it.
End.
So give him 2.
It wasn't obvious.
He just wants to beat me in the feature here, and I don't want him to beat me. I'm going to be honest.
And Ben and Jack both said Man City. So I'm not going to take away points for that because they finished 3rd. Top 4, I've got for Ben, Man United, Liverpool, and Chelsea. Now you got 2 of those right, so I'll give you 2 points.
Thanks very much.
For Jack, he's put Chelsea, United, Liverpool. Same again, 2 points. And for Kino, he's put City, United, Spurs. So 2 points. I mean, 2 points all round.
You did well there.
It's just United. I think all of you said United, and they didn't. So. To be relegated, Burnley, Hull and Watford for Ben. So that's 1 point for Hull. Jack, he wrote Burnley, Hull and Palace. So that's 1 point for Hull. And for Kino, he wrote Burnley, Hull and West Brom. So everyone got a point for
he
Hull.
should lose a point.
Lose a point for West Brom.
Yeah.
At least Watford came 17th and Palace nearly got relegated.
I'm not sure about this deducting
West Brom
points
came
on
10th
a
and they
win.
lost 9. They didn't win in 9
came
games
sure
at the
about
end of the
this.
season.
They came 10th or 8th or whatever it was. Where did they come?
10th.
Was it 10th? Yeah.
Top half.
I'm still in a relegation battle.
Yeah.
So,
And they
we'll
lost
talk
their
about
last
that.
9.
We'll talk
They
about that
didn't win
later
in their
on.
last
Yeah.
9 games.
first manager to be sacked, Ben said Puel, and he wasn't. So
No,
I'm not going to take away. Jack said Pardew. Was Pardew the first? It was
Second.
Guidelin, was it?
No, Guidolin was the first.
I'll give
was
Jack a
first.
point for that
Thank
because
you. Thank
because he
you.
was
Good
close.
call.
And well, Keto said Pulis or Pardew.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
you
true.
can't say 2.
Yeah, so I'll give him half because he said 1. So
Okay,
yeah.
fair enough.
I'll know for next year's predictions to just give 2 for everything. for
I
half
like you. I
points.
like you,
I think
Proudy.
Chelsea
I
or
like
City
you.
might win the league next year. I look forward to my half the
Point.
point at the end of the year.
Who else? What else we got? Shock team. Ben wrote Borough, so that's another.
It's not gone
That's
well.
another
It was
-2.
all the Karanka thing.
Actually, no. I'll say -1 because they were shocked because they didn't score that many goals. So I mean,
At the time, mate, you two were going, do you know what? You might have a point there. You might have a point. We
I mean, can I just say, none of us thought Sunderland were going to get relegated.
I know, that's weird looking back, isn't it?
We had a lot of confidence in David Moyes that was
And
slightly
no
misplaced.
confidence in Sean Dyche at Burnley at all.
shock team for Jack. He wrote Everton.
I mean, they finished 7th.
Yeah,
Is that a shock, though?
now?
I was listening
I
back.
think that was pretty good for them. If you look at Everton's previous league positions for the last few years.
I don't know about that.
I'm not sure because I mean Martinez finished 5th once. So
I think if they'd have come like 4th, you could have had that. But
yeah,
7th.
I don't think I'm going to give that one. And for Keno, he wrote Spurs. Now, I don't know
give it
because they
to him.
finished 2nd again. But
Who
yeah,
would have predicted Spurs in second start of the season? In all honesty, I don't. None of us did.
I suppose the
Sorry.
way they played as well this year as well.
I backed my boys.
Everton have finished bottom half the previous 2 seasons.
Yeah, but they finished 5th under Martinez. And
Yeah, but that was
how
like
many
3
times?
years
How many
ago.
times? Yeah, how many times in the top 6 under Moyes? So it's not really a shock, is it? They're normally one of those teams.
You're in charge,
and,
Brady, so.
and the last criteria I got is poor player. Now Keno and Ben both said Mahrez, and Jack said Vardy.
I think we're all pretty spot on there.
Yeah,
I feel like we've done all right there. To be
yeah.
fair.
I'll give you all a point each for that one as well. So
It's generous.
yeah.
So you may as well have given us no points.
Yeah.
I've ever told you about the time when
point's
my
a point
brother. Told you about the time when my brother didn't know who to vote for, and Britain's Got Talent, so he voted for everyone once.
That's a lot of money on the phone spent.
I know,
isn't it?
and he didn't understand why everyone found it hilarious.
No,
Yeah, I know.
you don't want to be
Jack.
biased, Jack. That was the problem. So what are the final scores on the doors then, Brody?
I am just totaling it up now.
Here we
Get the
go.
calculator out.
Oh,
Tenth.
okay.
So
So in 3rd place, after being top in Guess the Manager,
No
is
way.
Ben.
Shut up!
He got 11 after all that because he got -2 obviously for the Karanka thing, and then -1
yeah.
for Borough. So
There was some
Borough,
low
Borough's
Boys,
screwed.
after this weekend, Borough have cost me, but I don't even care. So, you know.
So yeah, Aquino, that half a point actually took him above Ben. So 11.5 points he got there. And
I like
the
you,
winner
Proudy.
of the feature this week is Jack with 12.
Thank
And,
you.
I
Thank you.
don't know how he's done that. I generally don't.
So we're like the middle of the Premier League table. Like only half a point.
I'm
I mean, I
appalled.
was 1
Yeah.
point away
1
from the
point is
relegation battle.
I'm appalled. I'm appalled by everything.
So after all that being the shortest features, ended up being the longest again. So
Yeah,
I mean, I've already called one episode the mother of all features. What do I call this one?
the father of
father.
all features.
yeah,
There we go, sorted.
Is that sexist? We don't know. Anyway, right then, everyone, let's talk about the team of the year. So we've gone through the Brady's feature, which has lasted a quarter of the show probably today. We're going to go through the team of the year then. So obviously, boys, team of the year was announced. We're going to quickly chat about what we think our team of the year was and compare that to what the reality was then. So David De Gea got goalkeeper. Any question marks over that one, do we think? Or is that fair enough? I think Lloris had a shout, to be fair.
Yeah,
Yep.
I think Lloris is a good shout. I actually put John Pickford down as like a kind of.
I don't think a
answer.
team. I don't think any
Bench
players
player,
that came bottom can ever be in team of the year.
No, but he did have a very good season, so
Yeah.
it's more of an honourable mention.
I think a nod.
and I think he'll probably get a move out of that as well.
Yeah, I wonder where it'll go. That's a good point. Young English
Everton.
keeper. Well, Everton is the talk, isn't it? But
Yeah.
apparently Sunderland want 30 million, so I don't know if that'll be happening. But yeah, Pickford might be on the move. Jack, any other thoughts in there? Who would you have had keeper of the year?
No, it's a good question, isn't it? think Courtois done on well. Like he hasn't really been tested that much, but I don't think you could really argue with his.
I think out of the top keepers, Courtois had the best goals per clean sheet ratio.
Yeah, he got 16 clean sheets this year. He got the most.
So deserved a shout. Pridey, who would you have put in there?
I agree with David De Gea, in my opinion. Yeah.
I don't want this whole chat to seem biased, but do you think a team that had a keeper who was sixth deserves?
Yeah, I think that's. I think that's different from the team finishing.
Well, I don't think this year he kept them in many games, but I feel like United's finishing was a bigger issue rather than their defensive frailties.
I mean, he kept 14 clean sheets, so he still did his job at the back. It's just, as you said, it was the attack which let him down, unfortunately. I think David De Gea is probably the right choice, in my opinion. But.
All right, well, before he gets his big move to Real Madrid, he wins the ForTheFans' EFA Team of the Year goalkeeper spot.
Do we have a trophy for that, or is it a medal?
Sadly not. Back four, we'll go through it then. In real life, it was Danny Rose, Gary Cahill, David Luiz, and Carl Walker. I would change two of those, honestly.
Yeah, I thought Azpilicueta, maybe.
I would change two.
I would take out David Luiz, who I thought's had a very good year, but I would say Toby Alderweireld had a better year.
I agree with that.
So
that's exactly what
I would have put him next to Gary Cahill. I'd have kept Danny Rose, and I would have taken out Carl Walker.
Yeah, and I would have put in Azpilicueta in that spot.
Well, interesting. I would have put in Victor Moses, who at the start of nobody at the start of the season would have seen Antonio Conte play him at the back. Like, for me, that's outrageous that he played him right wing back all year. So, again, I think Walker had a good year.
The thing is, with Walker, like, the last few months, he's been rotating alternate games with Trippier as well.
I think Moses has had a very underrated year. And because it's looked so easy for Chelsea, he's not really got the plaudits he maybe deserved throughout this season. He's been decent going forward, but also he's chipping in. Like, we mentioned Courtois, the most clean sheets, right? He's a part of that. So I think he deserves a little bit more credit.
It'll be interesting to see next year if Conte sort of sticks with.
Yeah, that's the area. There's a lot of talk that he'll sign a replacement. I think Dani Alves moving over might have been a little word.
Well, I've got one more name I'd like to throw in the hat.
Throw a name in the hat.
And it's the top goal-scoring defender for this year in a totally non-biased decision, Jimmy Milner. Right,
left back for Rose?
Left back.
I do think he deserves a nod because he's, like, again, similar to Moses, right? Out of position, played there all year, has done the team's objective pretty well this year. I think I would say
Daniel people have James Milner down as like a Champions League left back, but
no, and hopefully we don't next
year.
Hopefully not. To be honest, Proudy, any complaints with the team of the year?
No, I was going to say, like, at stretch maybe Marcus Alonso could have been in there, but yeah,
I think that's it. Really. I think he's had a pretty good year.
Yeah.
All right. Any other changes? Are we all good?
I think we're okay.
No,
so what would we agree with Alderweireld for Luiz maybe, and then a sort of toss up between maybe.
I mean, I might be tempted to maybe swap Cahill for Alderweireld, but I mean, one of those two centre halves, I would definitely have Alderweireld.
Yeah, so
I know Chelsea won the league, but would you not put Tottenham's two centre backs there, like Vertonghen and because they were the best defence, weren't they?
Best defence in the league, yeah, I think so.
I mean, there's certainly an argument for it. It's tricky, isn't it? Because it's not three at the back. Actually, Proudy, can you go to on the predictions we made? Can you just go to the very bottom and read the line there? Cause something quite funny me and Kino said.
Can I just say the only mark I think against Alderweireld is the fact that he did miss like a few months of the season with an injury. I think he only played 30 games. So
yeah. Read what it was. Kino said it, and I agreed. Basically,
basically, both of you said I don't think we'll see three at the back from Chelsea in the Premier League this year. So,
confidently said by Kino, backed up by Ben.
I think I said that. Like, I thought they might try it. And
you did. Irritatingly, you did say that. You did. You were kind of.
That is a very irritating.
That's the worst bit of it.
Can I get another point for the feature?
I mean, it doesn't matter.
I mean, you've won it, so
I want more of a lead. If we
leave
can
it out, Jack. Leave it out. Now for midfield, obviously, the Premier League. I love this every year. 4-4-2, without fail. Always a 4-4-2. But I think we should do sort of three midfielders, three attacking players. I don't think anyone is going to argue with Kante or Dele Alli in the middle. And then it's kind of, are we calling the wingers or are we calling midfielders? I think Kevin De Bruyne should have been in the discussion.
He'd be in my front three. Yeah. He'd be in
your front three? Interesting, because he's played a little bit deeper under Guardiola this year.
Yeah, but I think he'd still, as the sort of, I think he's the leading assist maker in the Premier League. I'd sort of have him as one of those kind of front three. But yeah, he definitely deserves a
I've got two names I'll throw into the hat. One's probably predictable, the other's kind of predictable. I think Christian Eriksen.
Yep. I
Yeah, I
agree.
think
Who would you take out of? So
probably De Bruyne.
would you put Eriksen ahead of him?
Yeah, and also another player I think unsung hero is Sigurdsson for Swansea. 13 assists, 9 goals. The difference maker ultimately. Fabregas, actually, I was looking at the stats. Fabregas has had a really underrated season, like 12 assists for him, 5 goals.
I think similar to the reason you wouldn't put Alderweireld in there. I don't think Fabregas has played enough. I think Matic.
Oh yeah, definitely. He has missed a fair few games. I think he's looking at it here. I've got the stats in front of me. He's only made not many appearances at all. 29 appearances this year.
29 appearances. A lot of those from the bench as well.
16 of them.
Yeah, my word. Any other names, Paddy?
No, I think I agree with everyone that's been said in.
Yeah, so the 4 or 5 you went with.
Yeah.
I similar to my John Pickford sort of honourable mention. Well, I did have
Lee Casamore?
no, a little bit higher up, slightly more cultured. I had Ander Herrera in my mind because I think he's actually been like an unsung hero.
I think United fans would agree with that.
A season where, United have been misfiring quite a lot, and particularly Pogba has. Well, I think this sort of conventional wisdom's a little bit off on him. I think he's been judged a lot more on his price tag rather than performances, and I think he's been okay for United. But there's been a lot of focus on Pogba, and Herrera's actually been a consistent, sort of ever-present player in the big games for United. I think he'll start on Wednesday night.
He won the United Player of the Year as well, so I get that.
And he's been very, very consistent. So yeah, he's one.
I will say on the Pogba thing, I've seen a lot of people saying he hasn't lived up to the price tag, which I think is fair. But in the few games that United have played with him, they've not really lost.
Could he have ever lived up to on Pogba? Could he have ever lived up to the price tag in reality for a central midfielder?
I think the issue for him is now, if he stays at United for the rest of his career and they go on and win a number of leagues over the next years in the Champions League, then suddenly it's just it was worth it. But I feel like based off this first season expectations, I don't know, maybe if they win the Europa League, suddenly the Pogba deal doesn't seem that bad because ultimately they've got Champions League football, they've got some silverware and it's something to build off.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Right, attacking players, lots to talk about here. In the team of the year, Lukaku and Kane were sort of the front two. But for me, if you're playing as a 3, it's slightly different. So the team of the year did have had Mane and Hazard in, and I would equally still keep them in. I think without Mane, Liverpool wouldn't have been in the top 4. Quite simple, wouldn't have been in the top 4. So it was a really key point of their season. And I thought Hazard was back to the Hazard we saw the year before, when he was really good before that sort of awful year.
Man of the matches this season.
Hazard, is that?
It is indeed.
That's a lot of man of the matches. And then I would have kept Kane in there, so I would have had sort of a front 3 of Mane, Kane, and Hazard.
See, I would have Kane and Hazard in there. I don't think you can sort of not include either of those two. I would sort of not include Mane and put Sanchez in.
I was going to say that as much as I'm a Liverpool fan.
Purely because I think Mane has again missed quite large portions of the season. I guess that kind of has highlighted his importance to Liverpool. But in the same way that Liverpool were quite reliant on Mane, I think had Arsenal not had Alexis Sanchez, who scored 22 goals in the league or something,
they still wouldn't have got in the Champions League.
No, but they would have been even further away.
Relegated.
So, I will say Sanchez he's had an incredible year. Played every single game in the Premier League year as well.
Yeah,
he's done well.
I think there's a few players. Sorry, I'll let Proudy come in.
Well, no, I was just agreeing with the Sanchez.
Is there anyone else you bring in or take out, or what would you all say it was a front 3? What's your front 3 be?
I think I think I would agree with Keno putting Sanchez in for Mane, in my opinion, because Mane.
It's a tight one,
I think Mane has proven this year that sometimes Liverpool do need him because he just offers something different, and he's more direct, I think, than all this passing football that seems to happen. But yeah, I think
partially football that Bradley did like. Do you not like football?
Kane definitely to lead the line. I can't see any other striker really taking that front spot either.
So I've got 2 names I'd like to mention because I don't think anyone else will mention them in any other football podcast this week for players who could have been in the team of the year.
Is it Charlie Austin and Danny Ings?
No, you're probably going to howl at this. I actually think Wilfried Zaha and Benteke have had exceptional seasons for Palace this year.
You think Christian Benteke's had an exceptional season?
Well, I think his goals have been the difference between them going up and down. I mean,
that's not why I asked, Jack.
I think he's had a very, very good season. I think Zaha, particularly, has been a real breakout talent this year for Palace.
Yeah, I agree.
I'll give you
top
Zaha.
4 side.
Yeah. I'll give you Zaha.
I'll give you Zaha.
I'm not sure. I'm not giving you. How many did he score, Jack?
Like 15?
18, I think.
15 in the league. It's probably more.
15 in the league, yeah. 17 overall.
Which isn't bad for a club at that kind of part of the league. I mean, Palace were knocking around the relegation zone for much of the season, and then sort of got moved a little way away at the end. But I agree on Zaha. I think if you were kind of including Benteke, you could probably make a case of someone like Fernando Llorente as well for the impact that he's had.
I feel like one other player just to mention is Son. Like, I feel
Yeah,
like he's a bit unfortunate.
I forgot about Son, yeah.
I feel like he's a bit unfortunate because it's just one of those seasons where there's been so many great wide players across the entire of the Premier League, and so he's kind of been forgotten about. But you look at his season, 14 goals, 6 assists. For a player who, I don't know, like last year, I don't think he was that impressive, if I'm honest.
It took him a while to settle, and I think the making of Son for Spurs this season was when Kane was out for, I think it was 10. He had about 10 games. The first few was where Pochettino started playing him sort of as a replacement for Kane, and then he kind of moved into a bit more of a strikerless formation. But he from that run in the side, he's carried that form through for like the last 6 months of the season.
Yeah, I mean, I was just looking at his stats for last season. He played about half the time he's played this year in terms of minutes on the pitch. He's got 4 goals and 1 assist. Yeah, he really has improved. I think it's going to be interesting actually this next season. I think with Spurs as a whole, because I feel like they're the kind of team that if a lot of their younger players, because they've got a young squad, kind of live up to their potential, they should be challenging for the league for the next few seasons under Pochettino.
It's interesting you said that. I'm just looking at The Guardian published their report based on WhoScored.com. I'm sure many of you have heard of it. And it goes through, on average, in terms of performance, the best player from each team. So it'll be interesting to quickly run through it. So there's Steve Cook at Bournemouth. Most people would probably agree with that. Yeah, played really well. Ben Mee at Burnley. I mean, we should kind of mention the fact, we'll come on to Burnley in a minute, but, I mean, again, someone's been there ever present for them, has done really well. I should say Sanchez got it at Arsenal, Hazard got it at Chelsea, Zaha did get it at Palace, Lukaku at Everton, not really a shock. Harry Maguire got it at Hull City, a bit surprising maybe.
Yeah.
Christian Fuchs at Leicester, wasn't expecting to read that. Firmino at Liverpool, which is funny because he's sort of the least talked about of the 3 sort of Liverpool attacking players.
But he was probably the most consistent over the whole season.
Had a 10-year, like a 10-game spell where he didn't really do anything, but apart from that, was pretty good.
Been in the team.
De Bruyne got it at City. Interestingly, Pogba actually got it at United, got a 7.71, which compared to everyone else, I think might even be the highest one. Or very high.
See, that's interesting about Pogba because that's kind of backs up my sort of thoughts on his first year in the sense that he has played fine, like a kind of that rating sort of makes sense to me, like a 7. And in a very like unremarkable year for United, that hasn't really kind of made it look particularly great. But he just does offer that sort of consistent
in terms of
quality.
In terms of rating, like it's higher than Lukaku, it's higher than Harry Kane, it's only lower than Hazard. So it's pretty impressive in that. Other players to note from other teams then. Callum Chambers at Middlesbrough, of course, on loan at Arsenal. On loan from Arsenal. Be interested to see if he comes back to Arsenal and plays a part. Because like the way Wenger's playing this 3 at the back system, you wonder if he'll fit into that. He's probably going to need more defenders, right? Mertesacker might be on his way.
Yeah, Chambers, that's interesting because, I mean, Chambers, when he first went to Arsenal a couple of years ago, he was being played as a centre-half, and obviously he's kind of been swapped between right back and centre half throughout the last sort of 3 or 4 years in the Premier League. He would seem kind of like Azpilicueta maybe at Chelsea, like quite suited to playing at maybe one of the right hand side of that back 3. So maybe that could be where he could find I think that's an interesting one.
Yeah, another defender. Proudy, you're Southampton. You'll never guess who. Virgil van Dijk did really, really well. Really good year for Southampton.
But yeah, well, I mean, that's he's injured for quite a while, wasn't he?
I think he had an amazing first half.
Yeah, back end of the season, he's been out with a knee injury. I think he's been out for 6 months.
So exactly. So that says everything about Southampton in the last 6 months.
Everything. Joe Allen.
They won a league title.
They've not won a league title. Unlike Portsmouth Proudy representing.
Yeah, I know. League 2 champions, League 1 next year.
Joe Allen was top for Stoke, apparently. Obviously, a big money signing, and has played pretty well for them. Had a really good spell at one point where I think he was their joint top goal scorer overall in the league this year, Joe Allen.
It's a tear to my eye. Reminds me of the Hodgson era. Can we move on?
A few more to go through there. Pickford at Sunderland, Sigurdsson, as mentioned before, at Swansea. Unsurprisingly, Kane at Spurs, not that shocking either. Holebas at Watford was apparently their best player based on averages. West Bromwich Albion was Gareth McCauley, and at West Ham it was Mikel Antonio, who had a really good start to the year and tailed off a little bit, I feel like. But was their top goal scorer in the league with 9 goals. So
not bad for a right wing back.
It's a new contract as well, so West Ham will be pleased with that. So team of the year wise, I think generally we think they got it right. A few changes maybe here and there. but it wasn't too bad. Now we're briefly going to go through, and I emphasise the word briefly here, gentlemen. Every team with a comment on each, really, on how we think they've done this season, and then that should wrap up this week's show.
I've just had a weird deja vu moment because I think in this show last year we got to this point and we were going for every team. It's like we've like talked for like an hour already, and so we just gave 1-word comments on every team season.
What, at the very end?
Yeah, like that's what we did in this situation because we didn't have enough time. It's like just 1 word for every single club.
We've got a bit more time this time.
We have,
yeah.
So.
Understandably, I think there's for some teams there's more to talk about than others, and we'll kind of go through that then. We've sort of talked about, I think last week we talked about Sunderland, or in the last few weeks actually, it's been a foregone conclusion, Borough and Sunderland. So we'll leave them out this week. Sorry, fans of those teams. I guess the only real talking point is, and we'll come to it on Bournemouth, but Defoe will probably get his move for a ridiculous amount of money.
A ridiculous amount of money and a ridiculously long, apparently 3-year deal. I mean, by the time listeners are listening to this, it might have even been confirmed, but that's what's being reported, which is crazy for a 36-year-old, 35-year-old.
But on to Hull then, who of course went down as well. Marco Silva looks like he's off to Porto. But overall, what do you say there, Jack?
Bit of an upgrade, isn't it?
Bit of an upgrade, only a little bit.
Quite disappointed that we won't see him in the Premier League though, because I've quite enjoyed watching him at Hull. Even though
he
they went
was linked
down.
with Southampton, wasn't he? I guess that deal's kind of fallen.
And Watford.
And today you talk of Palace. So I don't know if Porto is that's going to be happening.
I think I know which I'd choose.
Palace. Probably Palace.
Is the Finland job available?
I don't know. But he did really well, Proudy. To come into Hull, they were dead and buried, everyone thought. I predicted 8 points at the start of the season.
I mean, that's really harsh.
Should have lost the point for that, points. Really. Yeah, should have lost the point for that. But in reality, Proudy came in and did a really good job, and they'll be disappointed to see him leave.
Yeah, and some of the players he brought in as well, like, I know they're not going to stay now, like Grosicki, who I thought was really good for Hull. And it's a player who, I mean,
was impressive actually.
Yeah, in the Polish team, like I've only really seen him when he's playing for Poland in like international tournaments, and he's normally overshadowed by Robert Lewandowski, which is normal. But he's a very good player, direct player, and I think he's someone who could still play in the Premier League. I'm trying to think who else he brought in. It was Nias.
Yeah,
I mean that's another player who obviously Koeman didn't really like and was put on the scrap heap, and then Marcus Silva somehow managed to revive his career. So yeah, he's a good manager, and you know, it's weird. It's still weird to me how his home unbeaten run was ended by David Moyes of all people. Like, that's probably going to ruin his career now.
I think there are a few, just quickly on Silva. I think there are quite a few players at Hull that Silva really coached to the point where they'll probably get moves back into the Premier League. I think Klukas is one of them.
He's really impressed me because he has literally for the last 5 years he's played in every tier of English football in ascending order, like just worked his way up. He was actually playing for my local village team for a few weeks before Lincoln tapped him up.
My cousin used to play with him. Interestingly, Jack.
Fun fact today, Lincolnshire.
Yeah.
But everyone.
Lincoln were good this year, weren't they, Jack? Should we relive those
memories?
Lincoln
podcast.
Yeah, but Klukas has been impressive, and someone like Maguire as well. And as you mentioned, Brady, who did you say? I've forgotten.
No, I said Grosicki, but I think someone like Jakupovic, maybe he might get a move. He could be a backup goalkeeper somewhere.
Just quickly, Jack. Worth noting they lost Snodgrass as well.
That was literally the point I was.
Sorry, Jack.
It's worth noting that Snodgrass left them, and I think that was a big news for them because he did get a fair few goals. And I feel like when you are a team around, the level of say Hull, a set piece specialist like a Sigurdsson is a massive difference maker, and Snodgrass is very good from a dead ball situation.
I wonder if he wishes he'd stayed. He didn't light up West Ham, did he, Snodgrass? I do wonder.
I must be honest, I was watching West Ham a few weeks ago and I kind of forgot he got the move to them.
Yeah.
It's a bit weird.
Well, Jack, how do you think they'll do when they go down? You were quite critical of... Was it Borough you were quite critical of? One of them you were.
Sunderland.
Well, how do you think Hull will do?
I think it depends on if the ownership changes, if I'm being completely honest.
I still think it could be a big problem then?
There. Yeah. I mean, I still find it bizarre the club was not sold at any point during the season. I feel like that's kind of cooled down a little bit, the whole Tigers kind of shenanigans and all that jazz, and obviously the kind of ridiculous circus kind of that was Phelan at the start of the season being in charge.
Yeah.
I think for Hull, it's going to be tough for them because you kind of look at their squad. I mean, we looked at it at the start of the year, they had like 13 players. In reality, whilst they've added a few players, a lot of them have been kind of temporary solutions. You kind of mentioned Nias as a player who's really stepped up, obviously on loan from Everton. I struggle to see where Hull are going to find players from, and I feel like they're going to be the kind of team who go down And maybe a bit like a Fulham, who of course, got relegated from the Premier League. They kind of just ended up with a bit of a mishmash of players that they kind of managed to salvage together to kind of make a mid-table Championship side.
Yeah, we'll move on to Watford then, who are finished just outside. Like they're the team that finished 17th. I actually said at the start of the season I thought they'd go down. Mazzari's left, or he's going to leave as well. I don't know. Has it officially happened now? He's gone.
Yeah. Can I just say on that, he can actually speak English. He just doesn't to the press, and I don't understand why.
I don't really like that, but Pochettino's like that. Pochettino can now do it, can't he?
But he was, yeah.
But he went
It
through
was
a spell
something
where
about being misinterpreted, wasn't it? That's what he said. He didn't want the media misinterpreting him or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I found it quite funny. I think it was Aurelio Gomez was interviewed after the game, and they kind of asked, is the fact the manager can't speak English a problem? And he was like, yes. It's like, well, he can speak English. So I don't really get what the problem was there. Unless, of course, he just wasn't speaking English and he was still using a translator anyway, despite... I feel like, maybe I'm wrong here, but I feel like if you're going to manage in the Premier League at an English club, you need to know English. Is that a weird thing to say? I don't want to be...
You don't have to actively be learning it if you're going to take a job
I
in
feel
England.
like if you're going to come and be committed to a Premier League side, you should be learning English and within the kind of time that he has been at Watford, be able to speak it.
And if you are a Premier League manager, you can go to Jack's Tuesday night English lessons down in London. Jack?
Thank you.
It's worth saying, though, Watford are pretty lucky that they had a decent middle to the season. Didn't start particularly well, if I remember. Had a very average but okay middle, and then lost their final 6 games. Like, we talk about teams in decline. We talk about Palace a lot of the time. But in reality, Watford, they got to 40 and stayed at 40 for the final 6 games, which... somewhat
40
fortunate.
40's safe though, isn't it? It's always 38. It's like the mark. If you get 38, you're safe.
I don't think anyone would criticise this. Last year, of course, there was a lot of criticism thrown Watford's way because they sacked the manager and hired someone else. I think at the time, I defended it. I thought, do you know what? This is the way the Pozzos do things at Watford. They're looking to get fresh blood in every single year until they get something that really works. Watford's ambition isn't just to survive in the Premier League every year. They want more than that. And I think that is, again, why they've sacked their manager and they're going to look for someone else. And I don't know who that's going to be. But it's hard to be critical when they continually just, now at this point now, stay in the Premier League. Of course, they got them to the Premier League and now they're sustaining that year on year with what looks like a radical way of doing things. But, I mean, you can't argue with the results of the fact they keep staying up.
Agreed.
Yeah, no, you're spot on.
Shall we just move on from Watford and go to Burnley? Because Sean Dyche... I mean, he's had a bit of a sore throat all year, but he's kept them up. And we didn't think they would, boys. We were critical, Jack. We didn't think this would happen.
Yeah, you're right.
Have we got any more than one-word answers? Anyone?
Jack's still going on the one-word thing.
The issue I have with Burnley is I really struggle to see what the ambition is next season. I can just see them going down next year, especially with the likes of Newcastle coming up, who I don't think are going to be a relegation candidate.
Yeah.
And obviously, they've lost their talisman, Joey Barton. He's been a naughty boy.
Well,
released today.
You've got to say, right?
Burnley's released today officially.
Yeah.
I missed that. I mean,
it's a difficult club to attract players. Like, who do you go for? Who's going to go? Oh, do you know what? I really fancy a big move to Burnley. Is it the case where they have to go down the lower leagues and look for the gems?
Well, I think a good example of that this year has been Jeff Hendrick for them, who they got from
Derby
County.
Yeah, and so that is the kind of strategy for Burnley. I think they've
Will
kind of done
Hughes
it
next, wasn't it?
Yeah, and they've done it with like Westwood from us and also Lowton and a few other players. Like that is, as you say, Burnley aren't a team that's going to be able to attract players in the same way that, you know, like even a lower like a Watford or a Crystal Palace being based in London. It's a lot more difficult for them, and so I think that is the strategy that Dyche has to sort of employ. I do sort of agree with Jack to the point where, and we sort of spoke about this last week on the show, that those sort of teams in the middle, sort of lower middle half of the bit of the Premier League, like what's the next step for them? And you look at Burnley, and maybe the obvious way to improve next year is to improve their away form, because up until winning at Crystal Palace 3 weeks ago, they hadn't won, you know, an away game all year, and that was, I mean, had their home form not been as excellent as it had been, that was totally not sustainable. And there was a point, I mean, I kind of did say that, you know, Burnley should possibly fear relegation. Had their home form not been so fantastic, it could have been very different for Burnley. And so I think, as Jack says, with teams like Newcastle coming up, Brighton look as though they're going to, obviously with Chris Hughton, acclimatise quite well to the Premier League.
Similar situation to Burnley, though, Brighton. I feel like Brighton will adopt a similar model. I wouldn't be surprised if we see Brighton go down to come back up. That's the sort of model they go with.
I mean, I think it would be more likely one of the if we're sort of picking a team, potentially one of the teams that are coming up via the playoffs, maybe a Sheffield Wednesday or Huddersfield,
Reading,
or Reading. I think that would be more likely, but Brighton, at least on paper, are a little bit more expansive.
They've got quite a good infrastructure, Brian. They've got a lot of money. Obviously, brand new Amex Stadium. I think they'll be okay this first year. I actually think for Burnley, the big question for me is, can they keep hold of Michael Keane?
I think the answer will be no.
No,
I mean, exactly.
We'll
and I feel like if they are going to lose, and they've got a big shoes to fill, and I'm a little bit worried for them, really.
You'd expect them to get quite a decent price tag for Keane, and the way that Dyche does sort of use his finances, say if they do get upwards of like 15 million for Keane, possibly even more in today's transfer market, and the fact he's English, if they do get a decent fee, you'd expect him to be able to reinvest that quite wisely. I also feel that, sort of to wrap this up on Burnley, is that the way, I mean, we've spoken about this quite a bit on the show this year. The way that they play under Dyche, if they're trying to look to make that next step and maybe to win more games, possibly away from home as well, Dyche kind of needs to take the shackles a little bit off, I think, on this team in terms of just their style of play and how he approaches games tactically. I feel like they've been able to get by this year by playing quite a limited style, and sort of maybe Dyche would argue that's due to their resources and the difference, but they have been quite limited. And you look at the way someone like Eddie Howe at Bournemouth has gone about getting results. I think that is almost the blueprint for the way that if Burnley were looking to kick on a little bit more, even in just maybe points total or results away from home, they need to sort of adopt a slightly more proactive style of play. And whether Dyche can do that, I think, is the key thing, whether he kind of fancies it.
I will just say on Keane, his contract runs out next summer, so I think they will sell him.
He's gone.
We'll
move on then. And with Swansea, I mean, we look at like Burnley and Watford in the last 7 games won 2 games between them. Burnley won 1, Watford won 1. Whereas on the reverse of that, Swansea won 4 of their last 5. Like the form, the job that Paul Clement has done to get Swansea out of this mess. I think it's probably around February, boys, when we all sort of said we think Swansea will be down. Like, we don't know where this comes from now. They'd already had 2 managers, of course, Guidolin and Bob Bradley had come in and left, and then Clement comes along, and it's very similar to the Marco Silva situation in. What's he going to do? How is he going to make a team that seemingly can't be coached at this point because they just didn't look good enough and keep them safe, Proudy? But he's managed to do it, and he's done it very, very well.
Yeah, I think it's sort of style of play. Like it was very. It's not the free-flowing football that we've come to associate Swansea with. No. It seems like quite a very structured way of playing. I know he was a very stubborn manager. I think there was some players that he would always play, even though they weren't playing very well. Like Llorente would be one. Like I think Llorente was playing week in, week out, even when he wasn't scoring before his little scoring run towards the end of the year. But I think Clement's done a good enough job to keep him up. That was the main aim, obviously, when he came in to keep him up. And now, I mean, his main focus is to stabilise them. But I mean, I'm looking at some of the players that they signed at the start of last season. At the start of the season. I mean, some of them, like, he's either got to find a way to recoup some of that money, because, like, that Borja Baston, who they bought for 15.5 million.
15, wasn't it?
Yeah, I mean, is any team going to take him for, like, anywhere near that price? He's going to have to do something with him or find a way to fit him into the team. And, yeah, I'm trying to think of the other players. It's like Narsing, Jordan Ayew's in there as well.
I think Narsing's been quite a good signing. Like, I kind of understand. I agree that the style of play under Clement has not been particularly what Swansea fans would have been used. Yeah, but to a degree, like, and it's sort of, if you compare them to Burnley, who we just spoke about, I think Clement almost had to do that out of necessity.
Okay, then on to Palace, who have had a very up and down season. I think it's probably fair to say. Of course, started the season with Pardew. We all predicted it wouldn't last very long. It started all right and then went downhill very quickly, as every club Alan Pardew's ever managed. It's always been the case. Of course, Allardyce has come in. News coming out today, boys, that Allardyce wants to go. Are we shocked? Is anyone shocked?
Apparently he's had a bit of a falling out, and I can only assume he's asked for a certain amount of money for someone like Sacco to go and buy him. Because I think it was Match of the Day I was watching, and Allardyce pretty much said, look, we're not going to buy any players unless they're major improvements on what we've already got.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's the kind of attitude of, right, we want to spend big on 1 or 2 players this summer and kind of stick with the rest of the team. And it wouldn't surprise me if he's gone, like, look, can we get 25 million to bring in Sacco permanently from Liverpool?
Are Palace in debt? I honestly don't know the answer. Like, do we know if Crystal Palace are in debt? Because it seems strange that in the way the Premier League is at the moment, why wouldn't Crystal Palace go out and spend 50 million to improve major areas of their squad?
But they spent a lot this season. Like, Townsend was 13, Tompkins was 10, Benteke's 27, and then like the players they signed in January, like Van Aanholt was 10. No, he was 13 million, wasn't he?
Yeah,
Schlupp was like 13 million, and that player they got in midfield from Olympiacos for 11 million. I mean, they've spent what's that? Nearly like 80 million.
Well, that's almost becoming like the new norm in the Premier League.
Yeah, well, a team like Palace.
There was a report. I'm going to find it. There was a report put out last time. Palace have no debt, and they're debt free. So I don't know. Like, Premier League money is a lot of money. I know they spent big on players, but that's just kind of the way the Premier League is now. You have to keep investing to stay up there. I wonder if this is the sort of thing that for me bites clubs and has done in the past. And the teams that end up not spending the extra sort of 20, 30 million here and there are always seeming to be the clubs that go down. Like, you would argue Middlesbrough should have gone out and spent a little bit more if they wanted to survive. Hull were the exact same. Like, they should have spent more. Sunderland again. None of these teams quite had the squads to compete. And if other teams look around at it and think, do you know what, we need to add to this to make sure we're safe again, then Palace will be the team to suffer. It's brave by Parish not to want to do. And if that is the falling out, say that is the falling out, and Allardyce isn't getting the funds and thinks that he's been hampered because of that, and that's why he wants to leave. Maybe this is just a play from Allardyce. I want to leave. Watch how disappointed the fans will be after I've kept you up. Give me some more money. And they're either going to go, all right, see you later, mate. We'll get someone else in who will play within our budgets, or here's an extra 40 million that you wanted. Fair enough.
Yeah.
It seems like a play from Allardyce. Don't be surprised if he doesn't end up going. And this is him going, look, this is what might happen. Ooh. I don't know. Overall, though, on Palace's year, we sort of mentioned Zaha and Benteke earlier. Is it about par for Palace, finishing 14th at the end of the season?
I think the amount of time that they spent avoiding relegation and kind of the sacking they obviously had to make was sort of make it a less than sort of convincing season from them. I think obviously they finished really strongly under Sam. But if you kind of take the other half of the season in as the whole kind of assessment, I think they would kind of be quite disappointed, particularly with some of the signings that they've made over the last few years, as we said, and the money they've spent. They probably could at least be expected to have sort of been probably pushing for the top half with the money that they spent. So
yeah. Should we move up the table again then? We'll briefly touch on Stoke, who after finishing 8th a lot, are now not finishing 8th. We mentioned Joe Allen a decent season. Largely underwhelming, though, from Mark Hughes' side. Joe Allen, one of the only highlights. We didn't really see anything from Shaqiri. We didn't see anything from Wilfred Boney. Of course, he went there on loan. We've not really seen that much from Arnautovic. It's been a pretty dull year to be a Stoke fan, I would imagine. From the outset, did we see anything to shout about at all? No. So let's go on to so let's go on to Leicester. The champions are champions no more. 12th place finish. Jack, you predicted they'd probably finish about 12th. So you can have another point.
Thank you. I feel like for Leicester, it's just how would you judge their season, really?
I think this is what a lot of people expected. We just kind of hoped it wouldn't be like this.
Yeah, the journey to get here was sort of unexpected.
I guess actually, yeah, maybe people touted them to be 12. I don't think many people would have touted them to have sacked Ranieri and to have hovered around relegation for a number of weeks.
And got to the quarterfinals of the Champions League at the same time. Yeah.
It's weird.
It's been a very bizarre 2 years. These 3 years for Leicester must feel like an absolute whirlwind of what's happened. I can't imagine working within Leicester, within the club, and having to deal with different things every single week. Like the sacking of
You'd
Pearson.
just be stressed out, wouldn't you?
You'd be stressed out, but on a high. You'd be smiling while stressed the whole time. You wouldn't know what to do with it. But we saw the major players for Leicester in their title win. I think we all kind of predicted before the season started we didn't expect them to do it again. But we've not really seen anyone from that Leicester side really shine in the league. I mean, Champions League, I think we saw some great performances from, say, Kasper Schmeichel and a few others. But we've not seen anyone set Leicester alight this time, which is a shame because I think after seeing them win a title, you want to see them push again. They spent some money. I want to see more from players like Slimani.
Well, I was going to say,
nothing.
Yeah, none of really. I mean, perhaps Ndidi began to come good towards the end of the year, but none of their. Other than that, really, I'm struggling to think of any of their sort of big money post
record transfer Slimani as well.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Those kind of post Premier League champions signings that they made in the summer, none of them really paid off, and obviously Ndidi and Amati were kind of signed to try and replace one man in Kante, and neither really. I mean, it would be almost impossible to live up to that, but didn't really set the place alight. I've been quite disappointed by Danny Drinkwater this season. Actually, I know he's had
England's Danny Drinkwater.
Yeah, exactly, and he had that year. Obviously, went to the Euros, so was in the squad, and did not follow that season with anywhere near the form that we saw last year. I know he had his injury problems for a few games as well, but he was one that was quite disappointing for me. I think you mentioned Kasper Schmeichel. He's about the only player really that comes. Oh, sorry, got
Hello?
Email, guys. I've got mail. Kasper Schmeichel's the only player really that I think comes out with the same amount of sort of credit really that he had last year. I think he could perhaps get a move. If let's say that Leicester have another year, maybe he stays for another year, and they have a kind of another middling year, and he continues this form, I could see him getting a move, possibly abroad, possibly to a bigger Premier League team.
There's a lot of talk that if De Gea leaves, then we'll have another Schmeichel at United, and that'll be the keeper they go for.
I don't think. I mean, I'd be interested to see how Schmeichel can get on. And obviously, he started at City, but he was very young, didn't stay very long, and then
he's played Champions League football now as well.
Yeah, exactly. So I'd be quite interested to see, how he goes about being a kind of keeper at a big club, because it is very different being the goalkeeper of a team that controls the ball for much of the game, and you often have less to do. It's a different kind of goalkeeping than it is to being down at the bottom of the league and saving a lot of shots all the time. So
should Proudy, massive credit. No one would have thought we'd be saying this about 4 months ago. Massive credit to Leicester's owners and Craig Shakespeare, who obviously took them to safety. The amount of abuse, obviously, he was sacked live, Ranieri, and at the time we all said, it's sad, but this happens in football. But retrospectively now, Craig Shakespeare won 8 of his last sort of 16 or so games and has kept them up. Or 4, I think it's 14 games maybe, and won 8 of them. I mean, that's not bad for a side that looked under Ranieri like they were going to be relegated. They'd just lost 5 in a row. I mean, give them some credit, Proudy. It's a big decision.
I think... I'll give him credit. Like, I know when we talked about it live. Actually, no, I wasn't there when he was sacked live. I was the week after I was there, and I remember saying, it's not really a
you
decision
didn't think
that I would agree
sacked,
with.
though.
No,
yeah.
I remember saying that he should be given to the end of the season. And it's a bit weird to me because I know, like, a few games after he was sacked and they started winning, like everyone was like saying, "Oh, they're actually trying again." And Shakespeare went to the same formation that won them the league. Which I think Ranieri tried to tinker with, and it wasn't working. And then he just changed the formation all the time. Like all of a sudden, like it was a Vardy up front by himself, and then it was 2 up front, and it was 3 up front, and it was just like, I suppose the players didn't know how they were playing every system because you can only teach what the players like. Maybe 2 systems max, in my opinion, and then after that, it becomes confusing.
I think that's part of the reason I said Drinkwater's form. One game sticks out during the Ranieri kind of reign of sort of this season, when they played away at Southampton, and they were put out of their misery by Southampton. They were really bad. He tried to play like a diamond in the midfield with Drinkwater on the left of like the diamond, and every player in that team looked like really out of place. And it kind of summed up the problems that Ranieri had for me. So yeah, I agree with that about the system.
Yeah, I think he just lost the players. Like I don't know what it was like behind the scenes. Obviously, I won't know what happens or what changed. Like how
I was hoping you would,
players...
Probably. That's kind of why I came to you, mate. So if you can give me any insight, there.
I'm sure I can call. I'm sure I can give Claudio a call after we finish.
It was no coincidence, Friday, that you came on the show once Ranieri had been sacked, because we thought you had some Leicester inside knowledge, but apparently not. Overall, though, I mean, it's been a hell of a year for Leicester. I mean, they won the league, and then to get quarterfinals of the Champions League, that was their season. The Premier League was just make sure you don't go down in the end of it. So I think they'll be pretty pleased with that. Speaking of teams who had a big change in their season, West Ham recovered, Jack, eventually.
Yeah, somehow. I feel like Bilic has got a bit lucky here, because obviously West Ham, 2 years in a row, Europa League football, failed to actually qualify through it. And I feel like he had this big bloated squad. Obviously, Payet kind of kicked up a fuss in January, and he's kind of ridden through a storm where I feel like he may still leave actually ultimately in the summer. But he's seen out a season at West Ham, which I do feel like was kind of questioned. I feel like it was always going to be difficult for West Ham this year. kind of a transitional season, obviously, to the new stadium.
Has he done a good job with that? Do you think, Bilic, overall? Looking back now?
Not really. I feel like West Ham fans will be bitterly disappointed about the fact they failed to, make it into the group stage of the Europa League through qualifying again. Because I feel like, I can't remember who it was who beat them this year. It was
Astra, I think it was.
Astra, Romanian side. And it's just like, you've got to be expecting to beat them over two legs.
I think that's
2 years in a row to fail it, and then to finish outside the top half, having qualified for Europa League football back-to-back years. I mean, West Ham, if you'd looked at them last year, we would have been talking about West Ham as a team who should really be aiming for kind of top 7 as a realistic goal. And I guess in hindsight, they're not actually that far off it in terms of positions, but they were never really in contention for kind of that kind of performance.
I think it's kind of the situation with West Ham this year. Oh, and there's another email. Sorry, I should turn that off.
You should.
The situation with West Ham.
You wouldn't do it on question time, so you won't do it here. All right, carry on.
The situation with West Ham. I think you mentioned the Europa League thing, and that was almost so long ago that people might forget about it. I feel like that's almost the most disappointing part of the season for West Ham, because I mean, they weren't realistically going to go down at any point, and had they got into the Europa League, they could have maybe done a Leicester and sort of built their campaign around having a run in Europe and having a bit of fun like that, and for the fans to go on some trips and that kind of thing. So that was an incredibly disappointing sort of start to West Ham's season. I think that kind of set the tone, and it has been tough for Bilic, because I mean their form has almost noticeably improved since Payet kind of went, in a way, because it was clear he was having a negative impact. While he's a fantastic player, I don't think anyone would deny that, he was having a negative impact on the kind of dressing room as a whole, and it was affecting almost all of the team, I think, by the time he kind of left. So they have been able to recover. I think sort of bottom line with West Ham, if you kind of think about their season last year, sort of tells you a little bit about fans' expectations in football, because you could maybe argue that the last season they were overachieving, and that has sort of maybe adjusted the expectations of maybe the media and pundits and even fans about West Ham, when really perhaps this might have been about par for them, and the European moment was a failure, but where they are in the league was probably fair enough, I think.
Yeah, of course, we'll talk about where we think they'll come next year in our preview shows that will come at the start of next season. But West Ham will be a very interesting one to talk about based on how this season's gone with their new stadium and whatnot. Let's move to West Brom though, Keane. I'm going to come straight back to you there. You thought West Brom would go down. They've actually finished 10th. They've had, as Jack pointed out, they've had an awful end to the season.
Yeah.
But again, you're from a similar area. Are Baggies fans happy? Disappointed? About all right? What is the situation over there?
This is the thing. I as I mentioned at the end of last week's show a little bit, when we kind of were talking about managers and Pulis. I know a lot of Albion fans who, despite the fact that they've kind of shed that yo-yo club kind of image, and they've been in the Premier League now for probably 4 or 5 years, I think, probably a bit more than that. And Pulis has really solidified them in that mid-table. They are not enjoying following their team at all at the moment. And
similar to how Stoke fans felt then. That's kind of what I was asking.
Yeah, and I think maybe a little bit worse than Stoke, in the sense that I think the football under Pulis is far more regressive than even Hughes. They don't have some of the technical players that Stoke have. I mean, their form's been poor this year, but you might go to the Britannia and see a moment of magic from Arnautovic or Shaqiri that could is worth the ticket price alone. Yeah. West Brom don't have any of those players really, and
sadly, the closest they've got to
potentially, and I don't think they've seen the best out of him this year. And I think for West Brom fans, they're perhaps more than any other team, sort of the kind of glass ceiling, like where do you go from here? Particularly if they are intent on keeping Pulis, and many fans, particularly maybe the teams that have gone down or been relegated in recent years, might look at the West Brom fans complaining so much because they are very vocal about their dislike of Pulis and the football, and also their form since they reached 40 points, which has been abysmal. People might look at their fans complaining and think, what are you? How can you possibly complain about this? But I kind of understand where they're coming from, because there is very little to enjoy as a fan, sort of from an objective point of view, about West Brom this year. If you don't take any enjoyment from just staying in the Premier League, which I think is understandable.
Do you boys want to add to that? I feel like he did a pretty good job there.
Yeah.
I'm just Yeah, I agree.
You agree?
There's
Well,
not
Jack,
much to enjoy. Really.
Well, Jack, we'll ask you about Bournemouth, Jack. Eddie Howe, I mean,
Genius.
pre-season,
Opposite
he's
end.
a
Opposite
genius. But in reality, he's done a very, very good job.
In some areas.
I mean, they've come ninth. Bournemouth have come ninth, Jack. And you've
Yep.
said in some areas, what haven't they done for you? What? I mean, I can't believe I'm going to ask you that. Where did they go wrong? But
Their signings. I think the players who actually performed well for them this year were players who were playing for them last year. They splooged a massive chunk of their transfer budget on. Well, we all know him, Liverpool's golden boy, Jordan Ibe, did get a goal and an assist this year. He's a £15 million player.
Eddie Howe even said that he was disappointed with what he got from Ibe. He wasn't expecting Jordan Ibe.
I feel like ultimately Josh King's helped them out massively. 16 goals this year. Obviously, Callum Wilson been out with an injury, 6 goals in 20 for him. I feel like recruitment is questionable, but at the same time, Bournemouth, I think it's if you look at their percentage kind of increase in terms of points last year into this year, I think they're the 4th most improved side in the Premier League this year.
Yeah.
So I want to poo-poo them, but ultimately, there's a few players there. The likes of Tyrone Mings, who actually hasn't played that much this year and got injured, but he was another player who's actually signed, was it last summer? The summer before last?
From Ipswich, yes.
And he hasn't really played that much of them. Steve Cook, obviously a player who's been at the club a number of years. Who else was it they signed? They signed, was it Lewis?
They had Wilshire on loan as well.
They signed Lewis Cook for, I think, a reasonable fee from Leeds as well, the young centre.
Few signings haven't played off, though. Like Jordan Ibe, their record signing, has been anonymous this year. That's definitely...
I'll take the blame for that. So,
Why?
He let me onto a train once. So obviously
Okay.
just
that wasn't what I was expecting.
Well, no, just crossing paths, I'll take the
But I think for Bournemouth, they're never going to be... The thing is, I want to say they're never going to be a team who challenge for Europa League football, but actually, I think if they get their recruitment right, they could do. They're never going to have a big budget to spend, and part of me feels like, what if they had spent the 20-odd million, that they spent on Ibe and a few other players slightly better, on players who really made an impact. I do wonder how sustainable this level of performance is. I do wonder if the likes of Josh King might get a move elsewhere. Because I do wonder if they have the pulling power. If someone like West Ham came in going, we want Joshua King, how much? I don't know if they'd be able to keep hold of him. And I think that's kind of the sad reality of Bournemouth is that last year they had kind of an okay season. This year, I feel like they could be at risk of having a few of their players poached if they're not careful.
Pride, you're a former resident of Bournemouth. Yep. How do you assess their season?
I mean, they were actually near the bottom of the table, towards the end of the year, and I think that little run of form they had toward the last 5 games actually made them finish higher than their league season probably should be justified on. But I think I can understand what Jack said about them becoming a team that challenges for Europe, but I think for them to challenge for Europe, they need to sort out the defensive side of that team, because I know Eddie Howe's tactics normally is to just score more than the opposition. But to concede 67 goals and finish 9th is it must be a little bit worrying, because there's been games where they've obviously kept clean sheets. I'm looking at their results, Everton at home, and then that was followed by, I think, a 6-1 win over Hull. But a few games after that, beating Liverpool 4-3, then losing 3-2 away at Burnley straight after that. I mean, I feel like they need to sort out their defence, and they could finish higher than they do. But
there was a period, we should we're kind of moving through the mid-table here, and we kind of should make the caveat that there was very few points between Southampton in 8th and sort of Watford down in 16th or 17th.
I kind of want to summarise that at the end, just how shit the Premier League is, frankly.
Yeah, it was extremely close, and as Praddy said, Bournemouth defence was very poor this year. There was a time sort of around Christmas when they were in very bad form, conceding 3 a game almost every week, and people were, they should be looking over their shoulder at relegation. They've kind of recovered from that almost by the fact that it has been so close, and they've put together a good string of results between sort of February and March and the end of the year. And so, I think it's a good year, and they've obviously improved a lot. But I feel like from Howe and from some of the players that they have there, I think everyone sort of acknowledges that there's perhaps a bit more to come from them. I think they're one of the interesting ones next year, because now they've sort of been in the Premier League for 2 years. They've kind of almost become an established club now, in the same way that Southampton have. And I think it's not out of the possibility to suggest that they could perhaps do what Southampton did a couple of years ago, and maybe push for that sort of final Europa League spot if they make the right signings in the summer.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. And still on a South Coast priority, again, I always come to you for Southampton because I want the biased view. I thought Pro would get sacked. I genuinely thought Southampton would have a rough year, but got the job done pretty early and have just sustained being that sort of mid-table side. Finished on 46 points, which I actually think they'll be disappointed with overall. I think for Southampton,
17 down on last year, I think.
Well, 17. Yeah, for Southampton, I think that is a disappointment that they've had. Sort of, 46 to me seems like a lower half-table points tally, but with the way the Premier League's gone this year, it gives them 8th position. For Southampton and Bournemouth, they're going to get a fair whack of money more finishing there than they would have done finishing in the sort of the bottom 6 places. So they'll both be pleased with that. And overall, I mean, they didn't really perform in Europe, and they went out of that with a bit of a damp squib. And now the Premier League, they've had an average year. They're probably the most average side in the Premier League this year. Would we go along with that, even though they finished 8th?
Yeah, I agree with that. I think I know we were mentioning this before the podcast. I was sort of saying that Puel could get sacked because I think like the style of football that they were playing isn't what I think Southampton, maybe the owners.
There's a lot of emphasis on that now, isn't there, boys? Generally, like players and managers, or not players, but managers now being judged on style of play, which is strange because as an owner, surely you've researched what his style of play is before he comes in, and then to not be happy about it is it a bit too late to be given it that? Is it a bit naive from owners? Like, do we think managers should be sacked if they're not playing a correct style of play, or should it be solely focused on results?
I think it's determined by the players that they have in the team. If you have a lot of playmakers in the side, like because you look at like Southampton's midfield, I mean, you got like players like Dusan Tadic, you got Ward-Prowse, Geordie Classy, those sort of players who can change games by the way that they can like dictate play. But if you're not playing them like in a sort of attractive way, like you could play in a defensive way if you haven't got great players, like sort of like I'm going to take for example Sunderland's team. If you take Sunderland's side and Southampton's side, if you're playing like Sunderland with Southampton's team, then I think that's worthy of being sacked, in my opinion. Because like especially like I'm trying to think like in the Premier League nowadays, like attractive football's obviously what fans want, and I think it is determined by the players in the side.
I think
you look at the team, and I think Redmond's another player as well.
He's finished, but from Pearl's perspective, he finished 8th. Like, so he's going to go, I finished 8th. Out of all the teams in this division, I finished 8th, and we're Southampton. We're not Manchester City. We're not Tottenham. We're Southampton. Surely, on that regard, the board have got to look back and go, do you know what? You deserve another year just because of your placing. Like, it might. Or is that hiding too much?
No, I think what Keno was saying about Bournemouth, like, they were helped by the fact that all the teams in the middle of the table were like quite close to each other. Like, I think Southampton shouldn't be that close to the mid-table teams. Like, obviously, talking as a sports fan, it does hurt me to say that a little bit, but they should have at least a points gap between, let's say, West Brom and themselves. And then I can say, oh yeah, it's been a fairly good season, but the fact that they've only finished a point above Bournemouth and like a few points above the teams below them, I think it hasn't been a great season for them in that respect. But
17 points down on last year.
17
is the stat that sort of gives it away.
Can I have a point back from earlier when I said they were the underachievers? No, 17 points.
Yeah, there are a few things. I mean, I'm probably going to get an email because it's probably 16, but they had Europa League at the beginning, at the first half of the season, which I think they don't have the squad to sort of maintain the form across two fronts. So I think that is one factor in it. On the kind of style of play thing, I think, as we kind of said before, like if you for those teams in the middle of the Premier League who probably aren't going to win the league or even qualify for Europe, and going to the football and enjoying the football that your team plays is, I think, one of the main motivations for fans. Sort of it's kind of quite sad if you think about it, in the sense that the gap now is so wide between sort of the top 6 or 7 and everyone else. But going to enjoy the style of play, I think, is one of the reasons that you'd still go to those matches. And so that is, I think, a factor that maybe perhaps owners will begin to take into account more, because the attendance is important to owners, and maybe if they were declining, that might sort of prompt them to impact more. I agree with you, Ben. I don't think sort of style of play is kind of a black and white sort of factor. that the owners would consider when thinking about whether to sack Puel. But if it was impacting on other things that they would see, i.e. attendance or that kind of thing, that might be a sort of knock-on effect, if you will, about it.
Right. Shall we... essentially, boys, I think the bottom 12 in the Premier League this year is just full of, and I'm going to be quite abusive here, bottom 13 even, is basically a load of shit. Like, the quality of the Premier League, and we'll talk about it now, I'll just talk about the end, right? The quality of the Premier League this year is awful. We talk about, look how competitive the Premier League is. Well, the competitive doesn't make it good. And it, frankly, this season hasn't really made it entertaining either. Like, the gap then between Southampton, who finished in 8th position, I'll repeat that, 8th position, and Watford in 17th position, is 6 points, 2 wins. And that's the league we currently find ourselves in. The difference between finishing 13th and 8th is almost 1 win. In fact, it is 1 win. If Stoke had 1 more game to play, they won it, and all the other teams above them failed in some way, they might earn an extra 8 million. Like, it's not a good Premier League this season, in my opinion. The top lot are way ahead of the bottom lot, and it's going to be who can break away. And Southampton being pulled back in to this awful sort of situation that the rest of the teams are in, frankly. Because like, you look at the teams, we've said just there, Stoke have underperformed, West Ham have underperformed, West Brom maybe have arguably underperformed, especially at the end of the year. Southampton certainly have underperformed. Even Watford, to a degree, have underperformed. So you've got 6 teams in the bottom 13 that have all considered themselves to have a poor season. None of them have played as well as they should do. And of course, in a league season, there's going to be teams that play well and teams that play badly. But by and large, we've got a pretty abysmal bottom 13 sides. And it's only going to take, you think, from some of these teams to buy 1 or 2 players that set them apart from everyone else. Or at least get something going on and have a run. Like out of all these sides, do you remember any of these teams having a run of, like, apart from maybe Leicester, when Shakespeare came in, where you go, you've seen that they're on that sort of 7-game win streak or whatever, which we sometimes see from these lesser sides that pull themselves out of nowhere. Southampton, I think, did it last year, for example. We've seen nothing from the bottom lot this year. It's been a really, really poor year. And Hull, Middlesbrough and Sunderland are just the worst of the lot. And I'm not trying to, like, again, if you're a fan of these sides, right, I'm not just shitting on you for no reason. But it's been dull for me, the bottom lot in the Premier League. Every time that they've played each other, I've not thought, I'll look out for him this week. I've got no interest in the bottom 13 teams in the Premier League at the moment, and that is a big, big shame. Anyone?
Agree.
Yeah.
I think the issue is that so many of these teams kind of play what could be perceived as negative football.
But is it scared football? Is it negative or is it scared? That's the point I'm making, really. Is there, frankly, at this point, Jack, too much at stake where teams can't afford to go all out and play attacking football, especially when it's this tight at the end of the year?
Probably.
So is there a fix for that, or are we just going to go through a cycle now?
I think we get rid of promotion and relegation to the Premier League.
Okay, Proudy.
Let's MLS wage caps. Let's bring it in. Let's level the playing field.
Start doing drafts.
The Premier League great again.
Yeah.
But why is that then? Why are we seeing these teams just be cannon fodder for the? But is it okay? Is it not the fault actually of these bottom 13 or so teams? Is it just that the teams we're about to talk about now? We'll fly through them because we talk about them all year pretty much. But Everton, United, Arsenal, Liverpool, City, Tottenham, and Chelsea, are they just so much better this season than the teams below them, or is it a case of these lower teams just aren't doing enough? What side of it do we stand on? I want each of you to sort of have a thought on that.
No, I feel like, well, I know Sky always sell this as like the best league in the world, and then a lot of the arguments is it's the most competitive league in the world. If you take that argument, I think everyone's then just assuming because it's the most competitive, everyone's just going to beat each other. And I think this season we've seen that that's not really been the case because Chelsea have sort of run away with the title. And Spurs have like run them fairly close, like in seconds, I suppose. But
look at the games lost, Proudy. Chelsea have lost 5 games, Spurs 4 games, City 6 games, Liverpool 6 games, United 5 games, Arsenal lost 9. That's more than they ever usually lose. Like it must be a case then, surely, that these teams are just better.
Yeah, I think so as well, and I think it's also probably the amount of money they're spending, like compared to the other teams in the league. Like I'm trying to think like when it was a bit more balanced. It's probably, I'm thinking like 2010, 2011 maybe. I'm just trying to pluck a year out of the year. But I think that's probably when it was quite balanced where like teams, you wouldn't really expect a team to dominate the league in such a way. Nowadays, I think that's going to become the case again.
Do you feel like, Kino, this year we've had more of a season where when you see Chelsea are playing Middlesbrough, you're not going, anything can happen. You're going, well, this will be like 3 or 4. And is that the case throughout? Like Spurs go into games this season, and yeah, they've been good, but for years we've said anyone can beat anyone in the Premier League. Not this year. Spurs have rolled up to teams and literally walked the ball in the back of the net against some of them.
I think I don't know, because every year you always have a team that is like, or 1 or 2 that are like the standout teams, and I think Spurs and Chelsea have obviously been the 2 that have been far ahead of the rest in that regard. So you always have teams like that. I mean, you go back to the first generation Mourinho teams under Chelsea, and some Ferguson sides of the last like 10 years. They have dominated, and of course the Invincibles. They've dominated league seasons. That's not like a new thing. The teams below them who have tended to drop points, I think, teams like City, draw a lot of draws at home at the Etihad, dropping points there. United, of course, drawing loads of games. I think I saw a stat the other day.
15.
Yeah, it's like the joint most ever in the Premier League or something stupid like that. Like there have been times where those teams have dropped points. I think the difference is that we know that those teams, particularly the 2 Manchester clubs, are going to go out this summer and spend loads of money and strengthen even more.
Can you get a deja vu feel though when you say that?
Well, yeah, but I think even under like Moyes and Van Gaal, like United have been in transition for a few years. Probably went back to 2011, 12, 13. Then Liverpool were kind of in transition. That was pre-Klopp, kind of Rodgers. They were dropping off a bit outside of the top 6 even at times.
Yeah.
And so there are periods in the league where teams sort of go through that transition. Of course, Spurs like 5 or 6 years ago were not where they are now. So it depends, and I think that we've hit a cycle where the top 6 are really hitting their stride and just spending a lot of money. Maybe the TV money's been a factor in that, and it's kind of made that gap move a little bit wider. I think Leicester was obviously an anomaly to that kind of trend. Maybe we'll see it move back a little bit closer. Maybe, I don't know, Southampton, West Ham, and maybe even a Newcastle could have a great year next year, and sort of we'd be, this time next year, we'd be sitting here saying, what were we looking at last year? Yeah. It's really difficult to say. I think one of the reasons is, as I said, the teams at the top of the table are all kind of moving in the same direction right now in terms of their development. And so that gap looks like it could move a little bit wider.
Can I jump in here? Because I've been listening to this. I don't actually necessarily agree with a lot of what's being said. And the reason I say is because in the last 24 years, there has been 10 different English teams represent England in the Champions League. Realistically, the top 6 in the English football, with the exception of a few years, the likes of obviously Leeds when they did it, Newcastle did it, and obviously recently when Leicester did it, it's been the same merry-go-round of teams competing at the top of the Premier League year on year, going back almost 20 years at this point. I feel like this idea, obviously back in kind of 2004, 13 years ago, it was all about kind of the top 4 and would Everton break into it.
Arsenal, Chelsea.
Obviously in that time, City have kind of sprung up and grown into that. I just feel like there's always been this big gap between the top teams, and there has been the odd exception to the rule when the likes of Leicester have broken into it. And actually, I look at this season as just been one of the seasons where the Premier League's been predictable.
I think the difference is now you factor in, obviously, you made a good point about City. They've really disrupted that traditional top 4 of sort of big English clubs. You then also factor in Spurs, to have joined Chelsea, United, Arsenal and Liverpool as like the traditional kind of big 4. It's now become a big 6. And that sort of group of clubs has grown over the last few years. And I think that's one of the reasons why this season has been sort of noticeable, is that instead of maybe the top 3 sort of streaking away, or even like the traditional big 4, it's been a much bigger group of teams that have sort of moved away.
To give you an example, there, Jack, I can only, at this point, I can only really base it on what we remember, and last season is still pretty vivid when Leicester won the league. Above Chelsea and Everton last year, we had Stoke, West Ham, and Southampton. This year, they're all 20 points off it. They're all 20 points behind Everton.
But I feel like you're looking at last season like it was the norm, and actually I think last season was just a freak season in English football. I don't feel like I feel like if you were to look year on year.
I'll go. Okay, but above Everton the year before, Palace, Stoke, Swansea, Southampton, teams that were seriously pushing.
But Everton haven't played in Everton finished 11th the previous 2 years before this year.
But Everton are a consistent top half side, you would say, surely.
I mean, I feel like if they finished 11th the previous 2 years, I don't know if going into this season, if you could go there nailed on for top half.
I think when you look at their squad and you compare it to every other squad below them, this season especially, it's not a big shock actually that they're 15 points better off.
Oh, of course,
than the
but
teams below them.
I don't feel like... I feel like this idea that this kind of divide has suddenly appeared this year is only being said because of the points. And I feel like if you were to look at Premier League results this year, obviously I'm kind of saying this without any real assertion, I'd imagine there's been very few upsets this year. I think one of the issues actually has been that a lot of the middle of the pack teams have drawn against one another this year. You look at the likes of Southampton, they've won 12 games, they've drawn 10. You look at the likes of Stoke in 13th, they've drawn 11, won 11. It's actually been, the reality has been that these teams in the middle pack are so evenly matched and people haven't been winning 3 points off one another that has seen them all get compacted down. And I think that's more down to this season being a bit of a freak year and just one of those years where these teams are drawing against one another and there's not a lot to divide them. And in another season, a few goals either way, and suddenly we're looking at someone like Southampton, being a lot lower down. I feel like this idea that, the Premier League is basically 6 teams competing at the top 7 if you include Everton, and then everyone else trailing behind isn't really a new concept. And the fact that, for example, Everton have been able to improve from 11th to 7th this year, the fact that Leicester were able to challenge for the title last year, I think it kind of shows that whilst there is this kind of top group, it's never going to be impossible to crack. And I think if you look at those teams who have done fairly well in recent years in terms of trying to buck the trend, they've generally been teams who have played fairly positive and reasonably exciting football.
I don't have the stat in front of me, but I would be shocked if there was a season other than this in the last 10 years that had a bigger gap between 7th and 8th. And I think that's the difference to me. There's the gap's bigger than normal. You say this is pretty normal. I think actually you've seen like as a podcast, right, we come to record this show every single week. And how often this season have we gone, oh, there was a surprising performance from this team this weekend? Like, I feel like every time we come to record this show, and I'm kind of talking like behind the curtain a little bit here, but every time we come to record this show, it's always, what are the big clubs been up to? What about the rest? Oh, they've all sort of drawn and done nothing against each other, and it's not really affected the table by and large. There's always Sunderland at the bottom. And then only towards the end, maybe the last 10 games, I've had a bit of a relegation battle.
West Brom have been in 8th until they dropped out a couple of weeks ago, since December the 19th.
Which to me says a lot. The same teams are there all the time, and we never come here with an exciting story of, oh, have we seen what Swansea are doing this season or whatever. It's always been it's been quite a dull year in terms of the top 7 has been a bit of a sort of cluster, whatever it is, of teams performing quite well with some exciting performances, and then everyone else is just in this group of not much is really going on.
The thing is, like last year, Liverpool finished 8th, Stoke finished 9 points behind them in 9th. That's like 2 wins is the difference between 7th this year and 8th this year. Like, that's not actually that big of a margin. If you look at last year, the gap between 8th and 9th this year's gap. So last year, so 2015-16, the gap between Liverpool in 8th and Stoke in 9th was 9 points. This year, that gap is 15 points. In reality, that is 2 wins. That is not that big of a difference in gap. The difference is that last year, West Ham and Southampton had very, very good seasons. And I guess the point I'm making is I feel like you can talk about this gap of 15 points. In reality, it's not actually that huge when last year the gap between,
it's also 29. It's also 29 goals, Jack. If you look at the goal differences of the 2 teams.
I mean,
I feel like that's kind of inconsequential, though, is it not? And I'd go back to 2013-14, where the gap between Manchester United and Southampton in 7th and 8th was 8 points then. Like, it might be growing by 1 or 2 wins, but I don't feel like this is something that suddenly appeared.
Okay, I would then ask based on that, then what's the gap between 8th and 17th? Because this year it's 6 points.
Well, for that last year, so 8th and 17th, I mean, it was 23 points. But
do you see how that's a huge difference?
Not really.
What I'm saying is, not really. We've now got the team in 8th that are not that far away from being the team in 17th.
The difference is that this season, the teams like Newcastle finished mid-table only drew 4 games that year. And this year, I'm saying I think it's a freak season because if you look at it, there were so many draws in the Premier League this year. And I think that's one of the contributing factors to the fact we feel like there wasn't a lot going on in the middle of the table was because so many teams were drawing against one another.
I'm not sure I'm arguing if it's a freak season. I'm just saying it's been a rubbish season.
I feel like you were saying it as if this is like an ongoing problem with the Premier League. And
I'm asking, will this now become the thing? Like, what is it going to take for these teams? I feel like this is quite nice, actually. This is better than just talk. Proudy, have you got anything to say on this? I feel like you've been quiet for the last 20 minutes.
No, I was looking up stats.
What have you found? Proudy investigate.
No, because I was interested to see. I can't remember who just made the point, but it was about if there was a gap this big between 7th and 8th. And I think I found that in, was it 2012,
2013.
I've lost it already. I was going through all the seasons and I've completely forgot where.
2012, 2013, Liverpool to West Brom 7th to 8th was 12 points.
Yeah. So, and like that season, it was fairly similar in the way that like 8th to 17th, there was only 10 points in between. So but then again, like the seasons after that, it changed. So I don't know. I don't think it's gonna cause this trend to happen where like the top 7 are just gonna run away from the rest of the teams in the league.
In which case, who do you see breaking in after all the teams we just talked about? Who do you see breaking into this top 7? I feel like it's becoming a top 7 now.
Well, I mean, like, I just put in the Discord that Big Sam's just left.
Has he officially gone now?
Yeah, he's officially gone. He doesn't want to manage again either.
Really.
Yeah, he's having a break.
The only way I see the top 7 not being a top 7 anymore is if Everton drop out, if they lose Lukaku and maybe Barkley as well, and they can't get players of the same quality in, and Everton now become part of a bottom 14, and we have this top 6 that just exist because they've got so much more money. They're in Europe every single year. They know they're going to be in Europe every single year, and it's the top 6 show, and it's not what happens, and the Premier League becomes predictable at that point, and there's going to be a shift, and I feel like this is the beginning of the shift. We'll see at the end of next year, obviously. But I don't know.
I feel like 1 or 2 years of trends isn't really a trend. Like
right, I think we might see it for 5 years.
Southampton, West Ham, and Leicester finished in the top 7 last year.
The money that you get from playing in Europe now, from Champions League, from Europa League, even like United will still make a fair whack from being in the Europa League this year. Not as much as they would have been in the Champions League, of course. But these other teams, how are they going to compete in 5 years? When these teams go through this similar cycle, especially, say, United get in the Champions League, that's then 5 teams in the Champions League. I bet Arsenal are panicking a little bit, because that's 5 teams in the Champions League that can attract Champions League quality players that the rest of the league aren't even close to attracting.
I think another interesting dynamic as well is that, as I mentioned with Southampton, their form suffered quite significantly in sort of pre-Christmas because they were trying to compete on 2 fronts in Europe. And as you say, the kind of the money gap and sort of the players, the personnel, as that top 6 kind of bring in even better players and sort of solidify their dominance, I think that sort of almost puts a premium on how well you can sort of compete in the league. And also sort of go in Europe as well. It's interesting that Chelsea have won the league this year, not being in Europe. Of course, Leicester did that last year. I know that was a bit of a freak season. Liverpool have had a good few years in the last 5 or 6 years when they've not been in Europe as well. And it's almost as though not having to compete on those 2 fronts really helps you. There are only a few teams that can do that and still remain in the top sort of 6, or even top 4, consistently qualify for the Champions League. I agree that I think with Everton, it's quite interesting. They have a lot of new investment coming into the club, a lot of new money. There's talk of, sort of like £120 million war chest that they've got this summer.
They'll need that. They're going to need it.
Exactly, on top of the TV money. And you look at the money that United have had to spend to get to 6th. I know they've had a poor year. Most expensive squad of all time in the Premier League, £86 million on Pogba. You're going to have to spend huge amounts of money to remain in that top 6. And I think for many teams, even though they might be getting a lot through from the TV money now, which is more than it ever has been, there's almost like a culture, a prop difference maybe between like a West Brom and even an Everton, who, while they might be getting very similar money from the Premier League and for all intents and purposes have relatively similar kind of transfer budgets from that money, right? And, West Brom may be able to go and spend, considering they're relatively debt-free, 24, 30 million pounds on a striker. They may not feel they should or they have to, in the same way that a team that's flirted with the top 6 like Everton may also feel they need to. I agree. I agree with the Jack in the sense that you can't really sort of base like a long-term sort of trend on these last few years. I think this season was quite worrying really for the health of the league going forward, just from the entertainment sort of perspective, because there has been a lot of sort of nothing weeks that outside of the top 6, we kind of, and you summed it up quite well as we were preparing for the podcast, like there have been a lot of weeks where there hasn't been that much to talk about outside of the top 6. And I think that is worrying sort of long term, just for the league in general, really.
Anything to add? Anyone?
Not really. I feel like we could have had this conversation like 7 years ago when the exact same top 7 was in the same spot and 8th to 17th was separated by 9 points. But it's football. Sometimes you have years where it's close. Other years you have games where it's a write-off midway through the season and teams like West Brom don't care.
I feel like it was a worthwhile discussion considering we've done a preview show or a review show of this season, so it makes sense.
Pretty good review, I think. Of the league
anything we want to pick out though from the top 7 that we think's good? I will say, I mean, I feel like I try to be unbiased as possible. That Jurgen Klopp getting top 4 with Liverpool is an incredibly good season for Liverpool, and I think not many people had Liverpool in their top 4, maybe outside of Liverpool fans. And with a 5th or 6th best squad, he's finished 4th. He's done the job that was required of him.
Could have won the league though, Ben.
No, because the season's last 38 games, and people forget that. But I think we've done really well to get into the top 4, and it could have very easily been all year, right? We've had Liverpool bottle it every single time against the lesser sides. Scored 7 goals in the last 2 games, didn't concede. Haven't conceded in the last 4. I give Klopp a lot of credit, and Simon Mignolet a lot of credit. Who's turned his Liverpool career around, and I think we'll see him starting for Liverpool again next season with a few more additions. Hopefully, if we keep older players like Coutinho, we'll be in a good spot. I think lots to be said about Tottenham, that we've done a lot through this year.
I mean, we've almost like covered. I mean, that was kind of the point of the chat we've just had, like for 20 minutes. Is that we've spent so much time on the top 6 that we've had to kind of really give this run over of all the teams below them just to sort of try and even it out. There's not much more to say on that.
Yeah. Anything we touch on overall, Jack?
No, not really. Just well done, Chelsea. I feel like the thing is that
well done, Chelsea.
I mean, maybe we should talk about Arsenal because they've won their last 5 games and they finished outside the top 4. I feel like we could talk about them forever. And I'm sure we've got a
could
preview
say
show.
that again.
Well, we shouldn't. Yeah, so
I assume we'll do a show after the FA Cup and after the Europa League and maybe even after the Champions League.
Yeah, save that
a bit
for them.
more.
I think
so. We can probably talk plenty about Arsenal season then because I feel like we'll know by the end of that FA Cup game what the fate of Wenger is, and I think that actually dictates how you look at Arsenal season this year.
Yeah, I think intentionally we won't talk about Arsenal United because a lot of their seasons depend on, or sort of the summary of their seasons does depend on the Europa League final and the FA Cup final. Respectively. So we'll come to that next week as we talk a little bit about the Champions League stuff. I think we're going to do an extended feature as well. So if you're looking forward to a sort of a pub quiz sort of feel, then look forward to that. And I think, boys, that brings us to the end of the Premier League season.
Longest show we've ever done.
17. I think it is the longest show we've ever done. So I hope you've enjoyed it.
If you're still listening here, fair play.
If you've still got, what should we should have a word, Proudy. What words should we have at this point? Any word or do.
I mean, that's 3 words. I don't know. Continuity. I don't know.
Continuity. I mean, pick a specific word. just write the phrase, I can't believe this. That'll do me. That made me happy. Leave that in the comment section or tweet us it as well, actually. Or if you've not left a review on iTunes all year, finally leave one and just leave the review, I can't believe this. That'll be fine. Again, thank you for listening throughout the year. We're not quite done. There is going to be one more show, and then we'll probably take a little break throughout the summer. But it's been a pleasure doing these podcasts here with you gentlemen, and hopefully we'll do them again next year. Yeah.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to giving some predictions finally.
Oh, well, you can be a part of that show, maybe. Yeah, if you turn up.
If I'm still allowed on.
We'll see. If Pompey get to the Premier League, that's the point where you'll be cut.
You've got a whole summer to come up with how to make features shorter as well.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, to be fair, I joked earlier, well, that'll be a quarter of the show. It was a quarter of the show. But we'll see you again next time then. We're Love with Care from us at ForTheFans. From Jack.
Goodbye.
Oh, he's tired, isn't he?
I was giving a dramatic pause. Am I not allowed to do that?
Yeah, it was like mastermind. From Chris Proud.
Goodbye.
From Callum Keane.
Thank you very much.
And from me, Ben. We'll see you again. We Love with Care from us at ForTheFans. Until next week, and hopefully there'll be more to talk about. Goodbye.